Chapter 383. Wu Tong and Wang Long only did this in private. As the main executor of the investigation, Wang Long couldn't directly go to the school as a police officer to avoid alerting the enemy. Instead, he found another reliable person and had this person contact a few well-informed students to indirectly inquire about Wang Ren's past. For example, which student was caught cheating in an exam and fell into Wang Ren's hands, but there was no record of any disciplinary action after the investigation. Then there was a high chance that there was something fishy going on. This was how the police handled cases. This was called preliminary investigation. If the person they were investigating was an ordinary person, they might be able to directly talk to other teachers and leaders of the school to dig out more information. But this time, the person they were dealing with was Wang Ren, Su Lijing's nephew. He was especially sensitive, so the current operation could only stop at the level of a student. However, Chen Guang was a well-informed fellow. In the past, he had never sorted out Wang Ren's matters in his heart. But when he came here today, he started to recall as he looked. At the same time, he took a piece of paper and added to it. Unknowingly, the pile of evidence that Wu Tong had painstakingly organized was more like gossip than evidence, completely destroyed by the stuff that Chen Guang had dug out of his head. Looking at the 2 pages of paper that he had written densely, Lord Guang looked at Wu Tong with a meaningful gaze. Believe me, I'm really a cute little boy. I'm definitely not a gossipy person. Do you think I'll believe you? Isn't your university a little too much? Are you there to study or to be a gossip collector? Wang Long indirectly asked at least 8 people for information, and everything he collected is here. But you know everything and even added 2 more pages for me. Just how much gossip is in your head? Wu Tong was almost defeated by him. Poor comrade Wang Long did all his work for nothing. If you're so capable, you should have said so earlier. Chen Guang scratched his head. No, Brother Wang's work isn't for nothing. It can help me inspire ideas. That's right. Wu Tong poked his head. Save it. You're still trying to inspire me. Besides, the quantity of these things is far from enough. The lab equipment suppliers who had bribed him with money were the real deal, but they weren't easy to deal with. Look, these purchase prices look a little suspicious. If you think about it carefully, there is indeed something behind it. But isn't this the unspoken rule of the industry? These suppliers were also very cunning. They were all experts, and they would not easily leave behind any evidence that could be used against them. Sigh, my head hurts. Unless we can sow discord between us and let one or a few suppliers take the initiative to jump out as witnesses. Wu Tong rolled her eyes at him. Have you watched too many movies? What stain witnesses? How can other people still do business? Chen Guang smiled confidently. Why would I still want to do business? I'll buy him. You can do that. Wu Tong's eyes widened. Chen Guang nodded. Why not? The people who sold the equipment were just distributors, not the manufacturers. Some of them had the label of a general agent, but to put it bluntly, it was just an empty shell. I bought it in one bite, and then found the salesperson who was in contact with Wang Ren at that time. Isn't this irrefutable evidence? Where did you get the money? Even if it was an empty shell, other people wouldn't just sell it, right? It should be at least a few million, right? Also, even if you really bought someone else's company, you wouldn't have any evidence against them. Who would want to find trouble with Su Lijing? That's right. I'll think of another way later. Chen Guang looked at the entire list of lab equipment distributors in Wu Tong's file and pondered. He did not comment on Wu Tong's opinion. Using normal methods, he might not be able to pry open the mouths of those suppliers. But since Chen Guang wanted to do it this time, he had to see it through to the end. He suddenly remembered something and said, "There is another person. Let's go to his house tonight to meet him. Maybe he can provide us with something useful." "Who?" "Our school's deputy dean. Mr. Han." After all, Wu-tong was now the deputy bureau chief. She still had a meeting in the police station in the afternoon. Investigating Wang Ren was her private action. At the same time, she had to avoid other people in the police station. She could not rule out the possibility that someone in the Wenqing branch guessed some inside information and went to inform Su Lijing. After dinner, Wu Tong went back to the police station. Chen Guang went back to the school and walked in the direction of the graduate student dormitory. When he arrived, he happened to see Hualing bitterly moving things down from the dormitory building. Zhong Yu was next to her, helping her carry another box. "Why are you in such a hurry to move out of the school? Tell me if you want to move things. Is there no student who is willing to help?" Chen Guang walked up quickly and snatched the box from Hualing's hands. He carried it on his back. Zhong Yu spat, "Stop talking." When we were eating in the cafeteria, the deputy dean of the graduate student faculty ran to our table and pointed at Hualing's nose. He told her that she must move out today. If she delayed any longer, the school security would come and kick her out. Others. The school has already posted the punishment notice under the dormitory building. Who would dare to get into trouble? Aren't you afraid? Hualing asked Zhong Yu with a smile. She didn't seem to care at all. Zhong Yu shrugged, "What am I afraid of? Anyway, I've already been detained. They can't just give me a punishment for helping you carry a box, right? That's hard to say." Hualing laughed, "I'll be waiting for you." Zhong Yu pouted, "Actually, my family always said that it's useless for me to study. After I graduate, I should go to work. If I work, I can get married and make do with my life. Fortunately, I wasn't expelled. Otherwise, believe it or not, I would immediately find a job for you guys to see." Chen Guang, who was walking in front, laughed, "Follow me to the parking lot. My car is over there. You too, don't be anxious. The good show has to wait. Senior Hualing, don't be anxious either. After we get out, let's rent a house in the neighborhood over there. Maybe you'll have to move back in a few days. Don't say that you don't want to study anymore. Both of you say that you don't care, but in fact, you really want to do something with Teacher Zhuo, right? This photocatalyst thing is really magical. I've only been in contact with it for a few days, and I feel like my whole body is about to sink into it. Even in my dreams, I want to see something that can be made into something real to benefit the future generations. Yo, I still don't know that you have a car." Zhong Yu teased. Chen Guang was proud, "Of course. There are some things I don't want to say in front of Luo Jin. Now that we're on the same side, I'll say it here. If I don't do my job well and Senior Hualing can't go back to school, I'll open a company and you can come to work here." The two girls covered their mouths and laughed. They thought that he was really funny. Seeing that the two of them didn't believe him, Chen Guang hid his words in his heart. He was waiting for the two of them to see his phaeton and worship him with sparkling eyes. "Yo, not bad, young man. A Passat. It looks quite impressive." When they arrived at the parking lot, Zhong Yu said happily, "Young man, you're quite rich." Looking at the Passat logo that he had deliberately asked the 4S shop to make, Chen Guang felt a faint pain in his balls. He said, "This is a phaeton." "You're so funny." Hua Ling and Zhong Yu said in unison. "It really is a phaeton." Okay, it's a phaeton, it's a phaeton. "I'm really scared of you," Zhong Yu said. Chapter 384. According to Hua Ling's original plan, she wanted to take the things to the train station and ship them back to the northeast. She had already told her family about it, and they were very open-minded about it. Even her father almost wanted to argue with Su Lijing. Hualing spent a lot of effort to suppress her father's anger. Anyway, if the east was dark, the west was bright. She would still be able to survive if she did not go to graduate school. However, under Chen Guang's insistence, Hualing changed her mind. She did not want to leave Wujing for the time being. She originally wanted to rent a house, but Zhuo Jingxi called and scolded Chen Guang before taking him to her house. Actually, it was not that Chen Guang did not think of this idea. It was just that he did not want to have another person in Zhuo Jingxi's house. As for why, he could not say. Hualing's little plan did not work out, and she had to help move 3 times. She was exhausted, so she stayed at Zhuo Jingxi's house for the time being. Before she left, Hualing quietly pulled Chen Guang to a corner. She hesitated for a moment and said softly, "Before Xiao Lu committed suicide, she sent me a text saying that she buried a metal box under a cherry tree behind her house. I asked her what was inside, but she did not tell me. She only told me to dig it up after I graduate if I still remember it." Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. "Really?" "Yes, only I know about it. I plan to dig it up in a few days." She would not do something so meaningless. Hualing's eyes were filled with determination. Chen Guang frowned slightly, trying to guess what the girl named Ding Lu was feeling at that time. If what Hualing said was true, that she was drugged, she would definitely hate Wang Ren to the core. Then, her boyfriend made a big deal out of the matter, and she was too embarrassed to face anyone in school. So she chose to leave school. However, she could not tell her family about this. Her family would definitely feel that she had gone to great lengths to provide for a university student, but she chose to quit school without saying a word. So, when she returned home, she would be looked down upon. Later on, the news of what happened at school spread to her family. Perhaps it was a false rumor, but it turned out that she had behaved inappropriately at school and ended up being expelled. It was as if she had been abandoned by the entire world, so she chose to commit suicide. Before she died, who was the person she hated the most? Who did he want to take revenge on the most? Her boyfriend who didn't understand her and took the matter to the school forum. A family that placed all their hopes on a university student like her, only to end up with nothing? Of course not, it must be Wang Ren who pulled her into the abyss. However, she knew that there might not be many people in this world who could help her. She was a student, and Wang Ren was the dean of the discipline department of the academy. He was famous in the academy for being able to cover the sky with one hand and committing all sorts of evil deeds. Moreover, Su Lijing was there to protect him. Who could deal with him? Therefore, she locked her last hope of revenge in a box, buried it in the soil, and told her best friend, Hualing. However, she also understood Hualing's helplessness, so she only asked Hualing to dig it up after graduation if she still remembered it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. The thing in the box would definitely drag Wang Ren to hell. Perhaps, Ding Lu only hoped that the net of heaven had long arms, and that she had planted a seed of hatred. In the future, there would always be someone with enough power to water the seed, make it sprout, and grow into a vengeful tree that would hang Wang Ren to death. Of course, even if there was irrefutable evidence, with Wang Ren's background, it might not be able to bring him down. There were too many similar cases in the world. Truth often lost to power. However, it was different this time, because there was Chen Guang. After understanding the reason, Chen Guang's eyes lit up. He had been worried that he couldn't find the conclusive evidence, but he didn't expect it to be in Hualing's hands. "Don't worry, wait for a few days. I'll go with you to Ding Lu's house, and I'll try to keep your status as a student," Chen Guang said. Hualing waved her hand. "I know you're considerate, but forget it. That's Su Lijing we're talking about. In fact, if it weren't for this incident, I would have kept Xiao Lu's secret in my heart for the rest of my life, and never cared about that iron box. I'm not that noble of a person. Don't say that, you're already very brave, Chen Guang laughed. What are you two whispering about? Are you going to have dinner together again? At this time, Zhong Yu came over. Chen Guang shook his head. No, I have something to do and have to go back to school. By the way, is there a piano in school? Piano? Why are you asking? There's one in the performance hall of the Institute of Arts. If it was during school hours, I could contact the students in the Institute of Arts, but it's summer break, and the door is locked, Zhong Yu said, puzzled. Chen Guang was happy. It would be even better if the door was locked. Let's go there tonight. Thinking about it carefully, he was really busy. He had to hurry up and record a video, and prepare to go back and write the evidence he had so far into a story. He also had to be busy collecting further evidence. In the past, he had never done anything with such a clear purpose. Now that he had found a direction, Chen Guang felt that he was unbelievably fulfilled. It was as if he had become Don Quixote, riding a skinny donkey, waving the lance in his hand, ready to crash into the mountain that was Su Lijing. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu stayed at Zhuo Jingxi's house for dinner. The three girls looked like they had a lot to talk about, so Chen Guang did not interfere. When he returned to the dormitory, he first opened Weibo. Half a day had passed, and the number of comments on the racing video had exceeded 150,000. The number of shares had reached 300,000, and the number of fans was close to 2 million. Chen Guang looked at the screen and laughed. He thought to himself, with how popular my Weibo is now, if I want to criticize someone, I'm afraid anyone would have a hard time, right? Then, he searched for Su Lijing's life on the search engine. After reading it, he could not help but feel a little depressed. The information that could be found on the internet was, of course, all praises. Back then, Su Lijing had returned to the country with an extremely dazzling halo. From the 1980s until now, he had been active in the country's economic field. Not only did he have a lot of works, but he had also spoken at many important meetings at many critical moments. He had indeed done some practical things for the country and the people. Even during several financial crises, Su Lijing also participated in the expert group, racking his brains to come up with strategies for the leaders at that time. The policies that were introduced one after another helped the country to remain independent in the turbulent international economic environment at that time and maintain rapid economic growth for many years. Their expert group was the predecessor of the central think tank. Until now, Su Lijing was still a core member of it. This was information that Chen Guang dug out from Wu Tong. From this perspective, Su Lijing, who had given up the generous treatment abroad and devoted himself to the construction of the country, was simply a perfect scholar. Not to say that he was comparable to the 2 bombs and 1 star, but from an economic point of view, his wisdom alone was enough to rival hundreds of billions of companies. But no one is perfect. Chen Guang's face was gloomy. He felt vaguely sad to be enemies with such a person. It was not because he was afraid, but because he felt sorry for Su Lijing from the bottom of his heart. Perhaps Su Lijing felt that he was a person who had contributed to the country. Allowing a small figure to act like a tyrant in a small area of the school was far less damage to the country than his own contributions, so it was not a big deal. From a big point of view, that was indeed the case. But when the matter was narrowed down to Ding Lu alone, Su Lijing became Satan standing behind the devil. Everyone had their own definition of justice in their heart. Their starting point and foothold might be different. But this time, Chen Guang decided to stick to his justice. You may hate me, but someone has to remove the thorn that is Wang Ren from your body. I'll do it. Chapter 385. Just as he was about to go out and meet Wu Tong, Chen Guang unexpectedly received a call from the form teacher. In Gokyo University, the form teacher and the counselor were two different systems. The form teacher was usually in charge of a class, mainly in charge of learning, but there was nothing much to manage. The number of times Chen Guang had seen the form teacher during his 3 years in university could be counted on one hand. The counselor was in charge of several classes at the same time, mainly in charge of the daily life and discipline of each class, as well as the distribution of scholarships. At the same time, the school policies were conveyed to each class. The teachers and students often interacted with each other. Now that Chua Jingxi had been removed as a counselor, the form teacher that he had not seen for a long time finally appeared. The form teacher first asked where Chen Guang was, and when he heard that he was still in school, he said that he would come to find him immediately. After hanging up, Chen Guang did not need to think to know the purpose of his visit. Not long after, the mysterious form teacher, Teacher Zhou, ran over with a head full of sweat. When she saw Chen Guang, she said to his face, "What's wrong with you? You beat Director Wang up like that." Chen Guang did not get up from his chair. He took a sip of tea and said, "Teacher Zhou, did you come here just to scold me?" "Oh, I know. I've been scolded by you. That's enough." Teacher Zhou did not expect this kind of attitude from him. She was stunned at first, then said angrily, "How can you still act like nothing happened? What else can I do? So scared that I can't eat or sleep. How can you not know what kind of person Wang Ren is? So what if I beat him up?" Chen Guang looked at this person calmly, thinking that he was particularly funny. Teacher Zhou slammed the table. "You really have no remorse at all. Why should I have remorse? He shouldn't have hit me. I don't want to repeat the cause and effect of the matter with you, because it's meaningless. All right, Teacher Zhou, you've already been here, and I've received your intention. You can leave. This is your job, and I understand. But I don't want to waste my saliva on you. I'm very busy." Chen Guang asked him to leave. "You're chasing me away." Miss Zhou had heard of a rather arrogant boy in her class before. She also knew that he was the one who forced Wang Ren to leave the Jinhuan Academy, but she did not expect him to be so difficult to deal with. "I'm not chasing you away. It's just that even if you keep talking to me for 7 to 8 hours, it'll be useless." Teacher Zhou choked on his breath. Instead, she was shocked by his stubbornness. Her tone softened again. "Chen Guang, listen to me. Don't think that I was ordered by someone to scold you. I'm doing this for your own good. Now that things have already happened and Director Wang is magnanimous enough to not pursue the matter further, the Academy's leaders hope that you can at least go and apologize. This can be considered as making peace. Do you think that's okay?" So that was how it was. Presumably, the matter had already been spread to the ears of Principal Tong and the others. Although Su Lijing didn't say anything, it was impossible for him to have no grudges in his heart. The leaders of the Jianhuan Academy had no way of knowing what was on a higher level. They could only speculate about Su Lijing's thoughts from their own point of view. Hence, Dean Tong had a huge headache. Vice Dean Deng, who was originally on the same side as Wang Ren, had no way of not doing something. Principal Tong was extremely distressed. He vaguely guessed that perhaps Wu Shan and the vice principal had reached a compromise. In his own opinion, he didn't want to get involved in this matter. However, if he didn't do anything, Su Lijing might think that he was deliberately being perfunctory. After all, last time when Wang Ren left the Jinhuan Academy, Su Lijing gave him enough face and approved of his decision. However, at that time, Wang Ren only moved to another place. It wasn't like this time where he was sent to the hospital. This time, he had to do something. He couldn't do nothing, but he also couldn't be biased towards either side. Otherwise, he would get himself into trouble. Principal Tong thought hard for a long time and came up with a good plan. He might as well be the peacemaker and persuade Chen Guang to apologize to Wang Ren. Then, this matter would be completely suppressed. As for the other people who were implicated because of this matter, he couldn't protect them even if he wanted to. Even old lady Shu couldn't protect them, so he was also powerless. As the principal, there were some things that he couldn't say clearly. He let Teacher Zhou, the teacher in charge of Chen Guang's class, do it for him. Unfortunately, he couldn't tell Teacher Zhou that Chen Guang had Wu Shan as his backing. Teacher Zhou had to be more careful when talking to him. Wasn't that a little too much? Therefore, Teacher Zhou couldn't completely understand Principal Tong's meaning. She still used that condescending tone to talk to Chen Guang. The conversation broke down the moment they met. Regarding Teacher Zhou's suggestion, Chen Guang said straightforwardly, "Apologize. Save it. I think he deserved to be beaten. Even if he beat me, I'm not interested in apologizing." "You? How can you be like this? We are doing this for your own good. There are some things that I shouldn't say. But as for Vice Principal Su, in short, if you can go and apologize, it will be a good thing for you and the academy. Why don't you listen to my advice? Isn't it just an apology? It's just saying a few words. Is it that hard? If others don't pursue this matter, can't you give them a way out?" Glancing at Mr. Zhou, Chen Guang instantly understood what was going on. Yes, they didn't pursue this matter. Teacher Zhua, Senior Zhongyu, and Senior Hualing, you know about it, right? Then tell me, I was the one who beat him up. They didn't pursue this matter, but they punished other unrelated people. What's the meaning of this? Why? Chen Guang asked. Teacher Zhou was stumped by his question. Why? Yes, why? Chen Guang looked at Teacher Zhou with a smile. Forget it, let me remind you. Wang Ren has Su Lijing to back him up. I also have someone to back me up, so they didn't do anything to me. Teacher Zhou, you have to be more respectful when you speak to me. Chen Guang had pointed it out himself. Teacher Zhou was embarrassed. He couldn't continue with the harsh words, and neither could the soft ones. Seeing his awkward expression, Chen Guang was not in the mood to waste time with him. He rolled his eyes and said, "Okay, I'll apologize to Director Wang tomorrow or the day after." Teacher Zhou was overjoyed. She did not expect that there would be a glimmer of hope. Really? Chen Guang nodded. Really? But I don't know where Director Wang's ward is. I'll have to trouble Teacher Zhou to tell me. Teacher Zhou happily wrote a note to Chen Guang. She thought for a moment and said, "I'll go with you. It'll be more sincere." Chen Guang took the note and looked at Teacher Zhou meaningfully. Forget it. I'll go by myself. You, what are you going to do? Teacher Zhou vaguely felt that something was wrong. Chen Guang grinned. Apologize. His smile was exceptionally bright and full of sincerity. Teacher Zhou's mind was in a mess when he left. He always felt that he might have caused trouble. However, Chen Guang insisted that he was going to apologize, leaving him speechless. Poor comrade little Zhou. He even began to hesitate whether he should quickly inform Director Tong and let the hospital arrange for Wang Ren to hide in another ward. What kind of mess was this? On the other side, Chen Guang and Wu Tong, who had just gotten off work, went to Deputy Director Han's neighborhood. Old Lady Shu asked Chen Guang to look for Deputy Director Han, but she did not want little Han, who had no real power, to be dragged into this mess. Therefore, it was better to go directly to his house to talk face to face. Chen Guang was also a repeat customer of this neighborhood. Wu Tong's memory was also good. When she stopped the car, she clapped her hands. It seems that when we met by this river, you helped me catch a thief. Why did you come here that day? Chen Guang's mouth twitched. He recalled the youth under the sunset, the medieval knight armor that he almost suffocated to death, and Comrade Old Han's broken gong-like voice. The memory was full of bitterness. It's a long story. Chapter 386. Vice President Han didn't let the two of them enter the community. Instead, he ran out sneakily and pulled the two of them to a pavilion in the park by the river to sit down and chat. He was indeed very afraid of Su Lijing. He was not the only teacher of Gokyo University in this community. He was afraid of being seen by others. Chen Guang, don't laugh at me. I can't help it. If I were 20 years younger, I would stand out and testify with you, but now... Old Han said with some shame. Chen Guang interrupted him, Vice President Han, don't say that. I understand. I am very grateful that you are willing to give me these things. In Chen Guang's hand was a list of names. There were not many names, just a few people. But it was different from the list that Chen Guang had sorted out himself. It was full of young female staff who had come in and out of the college over the years. About half of the students, including Chen Guang, knew about it. After all, Wang Ren was arrogant. He didn't avoid eating breakfast in a small shop outside the school. However, there were still 2 or 3 people outside of the students' rumors, but these weren't important. You could say that there was a problem with his lifestyle, but this didn't matter. What was truly important was the name placed at the very top, the one that Vice Dean Han had deliberately bolded in black. Guoming, Fatty Wang's former director of the discipline department. When Guoming was the director, Fatty Wang was just an officer who had just been transferred to the college to participate in the administrative management. He had just left the ranks of the school police. At that time, Chen Guang had not yet entered the school, so he didn't know these things. But in the information provided by Vice President Han, it was written that the former director named Guoming had good working ability and was a much more upright person. He worked steadily for 10 years without any mistakes. But less than half a year after Wang Ren came, he resigned. It wasn't a promotion, nor was it a flat transfer. This upright and methodical director chose to resign from the school without hesitation. There must be a reason behind this. When Guoming packed up his things and left the academy, no one dared to see him off. Only Old Han secretly came to find him afterward and drank a table of wine with him. Only then did he know the reason. Guoming was forced to leave by Wang Renxing. Fatty Wang didn't use any extraordinary means. He just waved his hand and summoned his scoundrels from when he was in the underworld to stop Guoming from time to time. Every time he saw Guoming, he would beat him up, but he didn't beat him until he was crippled. He just kept disgusting him. Guoming had been holding on until one day, when his daughter was escorted home by Wang Ren's fair-weather friends after school. The poor former director broke down. This kind of thing was ridiculous. How could such a lowly method be used in a workplace struggle? Guoming had also complained to the leaders of the school more than once, but no one cared about his opinion. They only said that he might have offended some students at work, and he'd better take the initiative to find a way to resolve the relationship. Everyone knew that Wang Ren couldn't get away with these things, but no one could stand up to help Guoming. Fatty Wang used this kind of lowly, stupid, and dirty means to force Guoming out of the school, who originally planned to show his strength in the school, and naturally sat in the position of director. In the information given by Deputy Director Han, Guoming's experience was clearly described in a few words. After reading it, Wu Tong slapped the table in the pavilion. Guoming is too weak. Didn't he know to call the police? Deputy Director Han glanced at her again. Director Wu, it's easy for you to say, but how do you know that he didn't call the police? Wu Tong suddenly became speechless. She really didn't want to agree with old Han's words, but she also knew that he didn't need to talk nonsense about this kind of thing. Not only did he call the police, but he also has 2 surveillance videos in his hands. One was at the school gate. At that time, Wang Ren was still a security guard. He led 7 or 8 people to beat a boy into a vegetative state. The other was at the school hospital. The seriously injured student was sent to the school hospital for emergency treatment. Wang Ren followed the nurse who was giving the student an 4 drip, and insulted her. As old Han spoke, he began to beat his chest and stamped his feet. When Guoming told me this, it really hurt like a knife was cutting into my heart. Now that I think about it, I also feel ashamed. I knew that this kind of dirty thing happened around me, but I couldn't do anything about it. I turned a blind eye to it. I've let down my teacher for 10 years. I don't have the face to face the 10,000 books that I've read. Chen Guang and Wu Tong silently looked at old Han for a long time. They thought to themselves, another poor person who hid something in his heart and was almost forced to break down. But what can we do? I saw that video with my own eyes. Guoming sent it to the Commission for Discipline Inspection, the police station, and the procuratorate, but all of them disappeared without a trace. In this vast China, who can touch Su Lijing's son? Actually, I also wanted to be like Guoming. Seeing that things weren't going well, I would just hide away. But Teacher Shu wouldn't let me leave. She said that the current elder Tong was obsessed with administration and had no heart for learning. Vice Principal Deng was even more of a sucker for the rich and only cared about singing praises for the good and helping Wang Ren do evil. If I leave too, there'll be no one to support someone like Xiao Zhua who sincerely wants to learn. This place of learning will really become that bastard Wang Ren's den of lust. As old Han spoke, he desperately pounded his head with his fists. Just like that, he seemed to have aged more than 10 years. After waiting for a long time, Guoming arrived. Today, he was already in his 40s. His face looked oily, and he no longer had the dispirited and depressed look he had when he left school. After he left school, he found a second spring in his career. He found a job at a listed company. Now that a few years had passed, he was already the company's administrative department manager and the head of human resources management. Before coming here, old Han had already told him what happened today. He seemed to be very busy. He sat down and went straight to the point. You guys want to collect evidence to accuse Wang Ren? Chen Guang nodded. Wu Tong also nodded. I'm Wenxing Town's Deputy Chief Wu Tong. We are indeed collecting evidence of Wang Ren's crimes. Guoming looked at the 2 of them with a scrutinizing gaze, then turned to look at old Han. To be honest, the 2 of you are too young for me to trust. Many years ago, I did this myself. Of course, my ending was quite miserable. Luckily, I had a good classmate who helped me out. Now I'm living quite well. With just the 2 of you, I really don't think you can do anything. Wu Tong gritted his teeth. Mr. Gua, I'm really determined this time. Guoming suddenly laughed. Thank you for your determination. The world is lacking people like you. But what's the use? My life is very stable now. I really don't want to change anything. Furthermore, although I do have a lot of evidence on Wang Ren, if I want this evidence to be really convincing, I have to stand up and accuse him. And those 2 victims, the student is already dead, and the nurse already has a stable family. Think about it, it's been so many years. If I stand up again, it means that I'll be in Su Lijing's sights again. My life, my family, will be destroyed. Needless to say, that nurse's husband doesn't know that she was once humiliated. What reason did you use to convince her to stand up and accuse Wang Ren? Young man, this world is cruel. You guys are taking it for granted. Forgive me for not being able to keep you company. Guoming's words were very hurtful and full of despair. Chapter 387. Are you afraid? Are you backing down? Wu Tong asked anxiously. Guoming shook his head. I just don't want to do something pointless. At this moment, old Han, who had been silent all this while, said faintly, this Chief Wu's father is Wu Shan. Guoming, who was speaking with confidence and composure, suddenly paused. When he looked at Wu Tong again, the look in his eyes was completely different from before. Really? He turned his head to look at old Han. Old Han nodded heavily, really. Chen Guang and Wu Tong stared at Guoming. No matter what he said next, the two of them understood his decision. Guoming wasn't spouting nonsense. He had left the school for 10 years. After his life was ruined by Wang Ren once, he regained control of his life. Everyone knew how protective Su Lijing was. No matter if the accusation was successful or not, Guoming was just an ant in front of Su Lijing that could be easily crushed to death. It really took a lot of courage for him to make such a decision now. Guoming stared at Wu Tong as if he hated her. Why did she put the opportunity in front of him again after 10 years, making him face such a painful and difficult decision? But Guoming seemed to be thanking her. She let him know that there were still people in this world who were willing to stand up for justice. He even thought that Wu Tong's motive might not be that simple. Her actions might represent Wu Shan's instructions. Maybe this action wasn't just targeted at Wang Ren, but a drastic measure against Su Lijing. That was even better. The only thing that could bring down a person like Su Lijing was definitely not the law, but a higher level of competition. On a summer night by the river, a breeze blew through the willows. The air was filled with a damp, rotten smell. Crickets were chirping tirelessly not far away. The four people in the pavilion were silent. Finally, Guoming slammed the stone table and broke the silence. Let's do it. Let's send Wang Ren to hell together. Let Su Lijing know what retribution is. Chen Guang, Wu Tong and Old Han laughed together. Old Han also threw the teapot in his hand. This old man will also do it with you. If there's a day when I testify in court, I'll go with you. The putrid smell seemed to vanish with Guoming's heavy slap. Not for fame, not for profit. Another comrade, with indomitable courage, stepped onto Chen Guang's warship. After all, there were still good people in this world. After the two parted ways with Old Han and Guoming, Chen Guang looked at Wu Tong, who was jumping around happily, and hesitated. Of course, he knew that what he was about to do was not what Wu Shan wanted to see. What Wu Shan wanted was balance, an exchange of interests, not a life and death struggle like he was currently doing. He also knew that the real reason Guoming and Old Han were interested in Wu Tong. They all thought that Wu Shan had instructed them to do what they did, but that was not the case. However, if they didn't use this method, the two of them might not be able to make up their minds. Chen Guang could only think in his heart, Weistin Han was a scholar, and Mr. Guo was a good administrator. If this matter really ruined their futures, even if he had to start a company in the future, he would have to help them make up for their futures. This might be difficult, but it was not a castle in the air. Wu Tong didn't go back to Wenqing town with him, and even invited him to stay at her house in Wujing City for a night. Although Chen Guang was tempted, he still didn't agree. On one hand, he was in a hurry to go back to school to record the piano performance video, and on the other hand, he knew that if he went to her house, he would not be able to escape Wu Shan's call. It wasn't that Chen Guang was afraid of Wu Shan, but he didn't want to accept his so-called exchange of interests and balance theory. People with different principles couldn't make plans together. Wu Tong and Wu Shan still had a father-daughter relationship, and Chen Guang and Wu Shan weren't that familiar and important to each other, so he didn't want to accept his education. Driving Wu Tong's car back to school, Chen Guang first went back to the dorm to get a mask, and then went straight to the Art Institute building. It was already past 10 at night, and there weren't many people in the school during the summer holidays. The huge campus was quiet and serene. Chen Guang turned into a black shadow, and climbed up the outer wall of the Art Institute building. Thanks to the experience of climbing the mast countless times in the Sea of Transient, he quickly climbed up the outer wall of the Art Institute building. After struggling for about 10 minutes, he finally entered the performance hall. 2 campus police officers were patrolling the school, and as they walked, they could vaguely hear the sound of a piano playing. "What's that sound?" one of the campus police officers asked his partner. The other turned his head to look in the direction of the Art Institute building, and couldn't help but feel creeped out by the cold wind. "Is someone playing the piano over there? Let's go take a look." "No. It's the middle of the night. How could someone be playing the piano in there? It's not a person. F***ck. Can you not say it out loud?" The satisfied Chen Guang didn't know that the 2 poor brothers outside were scared out of their wits. Back in the dorm, he turned on his computer, and blurred out the parts that might expose him to be in the performance hall of the Art Institute building of Gokyo University, and then uploaded the video. As per international practice, he scrolled through Weibo, and before he knew it, the number of his fans had completely broken through 2 million, reaching as high as 2.6 million. Weibo had already invited him more than once to activate his V-verification and self-media verification. Chen Guang was tempted, but he still knelt down to the real name verification. His heart ached when he couldn't earn money. On the other hand, Wu Tong suddenly came home, and Wu Shan was overjoyed. He personally cooked a bowl of dumplings for her as a midnight snack, and watched Wu Tong eat happily. "Why did you suddenly come back today? What were you busy with?" Wu Shan asked. Wu Tong waved her hand. "Nothing much. I was singing a song with a few friends." "Why? Are you unhappy that I'm back?" Wu Shan did not suspect anything. "How can I do that? I'm more than happy about it. Why don't I transfer you to the city after some time? You can stay at home every day. I'm always alone at home, and I don't have anyone to talk to when I come home at night." Wu Tong rolled her eyes. "How can that be? You are the head of the department. Many people are lining up to treat you to a meal. It's not like you don't know that I never attend those events. My identity is sensitive, and I can't let others gossip about me." Wu Shan said. "That's right. Comrade Wu Shan, you are famous for being selfless, and willing to sacrifice your family for the greater good." Wu Tong felt that he was trying to tell her something again. She waved her hand impatiently, finished the dumplings, and went back to her room to sleep. After Wu Tong entered her room, Wu Shan frowned. He could tell that Wu Tong was hiding something from him, but he didn't dare to interrogate his daughter. Just when he was trying to figure out what Wu Tong was hiding, his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Chen Guang. Chapter 388. Chen Guang held the mouse in one hand and refreshed Weibo continuously. He held his phone in the other hand and waited for the call to be connected. Wu Shan quickly got up and glanced at Wu Tong's closed bedroom before returning to his room. "Little Chen, what's up?" The change in the way he addressed Wu Tong could be seen. On the other end, Chen Guang grinned and did not mind. "Uncle Wu, I'm sorry to call you so late. But there's one thing I think I should talk to you about in advance." Wu Shan's heart skipped a beat and he instantly understood. "It seems like what I said to you before was for nothing." Chen Guang chuckled. "It's not for nothing. Uncle Wu, your life philosophy is certainly correct from the perspective of a person's future. Just tell me what's next. You're keeping me in suspense." Even Wu Shan felt that it was weird. He had only met Chen Guang twice, and they didn't even exchange 10 words. But when he spoke to Chen Guang over the phone, he would subconsciously treat Chen Guang as a junior. Even though he had made it clear that he was not an obedient junior, Wu Shan was not particularly angry. Although this kid had saved Wu Tong's life, Wu Shan did not want to admit that the longer he got involved in the system, the more he envied Chen Guang's carefree personality. Whether it was helping him deal with the small fry Wang Ren last time, or indirectly dragging him to the opposite side of Su Lijing this time, although Wu Shan was a little troubled, he really did not want to blame him. Is there some kind of magic in this kid? My daughter likes him and I don't hate him. Wu Shan, who had never been superstitious, became superstitious. Alright, I'll go to Wang Ren's ward tomorrow or the day after. No matter what, I have to make Su Lijing change his mind. I can't let my teacher and classmates be implicated by me. Chen Guang took a deep breath and said. You know that Su Li didn't pursue this matter because of me. If you do this, it will make things very difficult for me. Wu Shan's voice sounded very calm. On the other end of the phone, Chen Guang grunted, that's why I'm communicating with you in advance tonight, Uncle Wu. If you think it's necessary, you can make it clear to Su Lijing in advance and draw a clear line between us. I don't really understand things at your level. But you know, I don't want to make things difficult for you. Even if I'm the one being expelled, don't touch my teacher and other students. It seems that no matter what I say, I won't be able to change your mind. I'm a little curious. What do you have to make Su Lijing yield? Wu Shan asked curiously. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but public opinion. Public opinion. This is indeed a good thing, but it's not something ordinary people can control. I'm afraid it won't have any effect on him. Wu Shan began to guide Chen Guang. Uncle Wu, you don't have to worry about that. Anyway, I'll give it a try first. If it doesn't work, I'll think of something else. Since you've made up your mind and I can't persuade you, I'll wish you success in advance. However, you're still young. Listen to me, don't go to extremes. As for the impact this might have on me, you don't have to care about it. It's already happened anyway. Besides, since I've already protected you, of course, I won't go back on my word. This isn't just your fault. If I'm too weak, won't Su Lijing look down on me for no reason? Wu Shan recalled Chen Guang's true abilities. Although he did not know how he did it back then, it was true that he had single-handedly killed all the tyrannical bandits with Shizhou's strength. Such a person was equivalent to a huge time bomb. If he was really forced into a dead end, the consequences would be extremely serious. When Wu Shan said this, he looked in the direction of Wu Tong's bedroom. He really did not want to have to personally order the arrest of Chen Guang one day. Chen Guang grunted and hung up the phone. He lay back on the chair and pondered. Chen Guang did not know what Wu Shan would do. Deep down in his heart, he did not want Wu Shan to communicate with Su Lijing again. However, this idea seemed a little too selfish. He could not help but think that perhaps Wu Shan was right. Perhaps he really did not need to be so anxious. However, would retreating be useful? Would enduring make one live a happier life? Not necessarily. Back then, when the family's hot pot restaurant had an accident, Old Man endured it like this. However, the result that awaited the whole family was a hasty court judgment. They shouldered all the responsibility and were back to square one. Now, they had to bear millions of compensation debts. Even if it was willful, this time, I must do it according to the truest thoughts in the depths of my heart. Whether I'm naive, ignorant, or crazy, it doesn't matter. Endure for a moment, take a step back, and the world will be clear. However, even if he endured Wang Ren and Su Lijing this time, the next time there would be Zhao Ren and Qian Lijing. He would have to be like a tortoise, hiding in its shell and living in fear for the rest of his life. What was the point of that? The next morning, just as dawn broke, Chen Guang received a call from Wu Tong. She said that she was already waiting for him downstairs. Wu Tong looked apologetic. I don't know what's wrong with the bureau. They suddenly gave me an urgent mission. I have to go to another province to arrest. Oh, this is a secret mission. I almost let it slip. Chen Guang understood, but his face did not reveal any flaws. It's fine. Work is more important and cannot be delayed. You go do your work first. I'll run around alone for the next few days. We can work together when you come back. A few days won't make much of a difference. Wu Tong grunted and took her car keys and left in a hurry. Looking at her silhouette, Chen Guang felt that Wu Shan had done something in the end, and sending Wu Tong away was the right decision. He was afraid that before the dust settled on Wang Ren and Su Lizheng, she would not be able to come back. Sigh, if old Han and Guoming's determination was shaken because of this, there was nothing he could do. Of course, Chen Guang had already expected this. It could even be said that he had deliberately sent Wu Tong away. When he realized that Wu Shan didn't support him, he made up his mind. He didn't want to leave an impression on Wu Shan, as if he had deliberately dragged Wu Tong into this matter. Chen Guang did not want to use Wu Tong. His previous decision was thoughtless. If he went alone, he could leave some space between Wu Shan and Su Lizheng. If he really dragged Wu Tong into this, he was afraid that the two of them would really fight to the death. No matter what the final outcome was, Wu Shan would definitely be troubled. Chen Guang did not want to be ungrateful and make himself look despicable for no reason. It did not matter that Wu Tong left. Guoming had sent the two most crucial videos last night. Together with the things Ding Lu hid in the box, it might be enough. Driving a phaeton into the city, Chen Guang first called Wang Qing and asked him to find a few people to go with him. Chen Guang's plan was very simple. If he wanted to use the conventional way to make those companies that sold experimental equipment hand over the evidence of bribery, it would be impossible. As for buying the company, it was just a joke. If he really bought someone else, it would not leave any evidence. Therefore, he had to use some unorthodox methods. Last time, Zhong Bai said that Wang Qing's family was very capable. Wouldn't it be stupid not to use the resources? However, Wang Qing came in person and brought a few big brothers who were obviously big shots in the underworld. When the two sides met, Wang Qing introduced them one by one. He did not boast about these people, but in short, no matter where they went, both the underworld and the underworld had to give them some face. On the other hand, Chen Guang felt embarrassed, while Wang Qing laughed it off. He only said that when those uncles heard that he needed them to support him, they were too embarrassed to send their subordinates over. Hence, they decided to come personally. The most important thing to support was nothing more than face. Anyway, everyone had nothing to do, so the face of the old guy was certainly the most useful. Therefore, Chen Guang and Wang Qing wandered around the city for a whole day with this luxurious lineup that had not been seen in Wujing City for 10 years. They went to 8 companies in one breath. The super luxurious lineup was really useful. After a whole day, Chen Guang did not spend much effort to get copies or originals of checks, transfer records, and call recordings. Chapter 389. These things were the most solid evidence. Generally, experienced purchasing managers would not leave behind so many pieces of evidence. It was Wang Ren's fault. When he was in the Jinhuan school, he was used to bullying the students. When he came to the School of Chemical Engineering, he was still the same. He was arrogant, fearless, and did not take these suppliers seriously. He did not pay attention to any techniques, and as a result, these people secretly left a lot of evidence. Now, they all fell into the hands of Chen Guang. After a busy day, Chen Guang did not return to school. Instead, he drove directly to the entrance of the Dechuan Province Hospital where Wang Ren was staying and found a hotel to stay. Tomorrow, it was time to apologize. Before going to bed, Chen Guang first organized the information he collected during this time and wrote a long article on the hotel computer. This long article didn't have any special content. It was just a combination of the gossip Wu Tong had asked Wang Long to gather, the rumors in his head, and the stories of the 8 equipment buyers. As for the stories between the former faculty and staff that Elder Han told him, he did not plan to write it for the time being. These things had to be left as a bombshell later. After carefully examining his carefully crafted long article with satisfaction, Chen Guang was quite proud of himself. Sure enough, he had the potential to become an internet celebrity. Even if he did not post a video, as long as he deliberately wrote, he could become a good jokester. This long article, aside from the fact that most of the names were pseudonyms, was written vividly and vividly. Once it was published, it would definitely cause a surge of emotions and anger. It perfectly described the image of a scoundrel who mingled in the holy land of the school. The next morning, when Chen Guang woke up, he first posted a seemingly brainless sentence on the Weibo of Almighty Superman. Wang Wu is too good, the benevolent are not benevolent. At this time, the total number of fans on his Weibo was close to 4 million. In the video of his piano performance posted the day before yesterday, he wore a mask and challenged the top 10 internationally renowned difficult songs one by one. His performance was so accurate that it made people's hair stand on end, and it completely shocked everyone's ears. At first, when the video was heard by people who didn't know much about music, they might think, "Oh, this almighty Superman is amazing. He can even play the piano." But when a true professional carefully examined each of his songs, compared them one by one, and conducted an in-depth analysis, the world knew how amazing he was. There were thousands of people who could play the piano, but there was almost no one who could play the 10 most difficult songs in one go without cramping up their hands. Not only did he not cramp, he even maintained the precision of a player from beginning to end. There had never been such a person in history. If it wasn't for the fact that Chen Guang took out the pencil and sharpener that he had been hiding in his pocket and performed the magic skill of sharpening a rose in an instant to verify his identity, no one would believe that the person wearing the mask was the same person. At this time, people finally understood the meaning of the ID Almighty Superman. After all this time, he had not added any accounts or accepted any advertisements. He had only been posting videos or acting cute from time to time. His purpose of becoming an internet celebrity was to let others know that he was here to show off. He wanted to tell them that no matter what he did, he was the best. No wonder he was called Almighty Superman. Brother, you are so honest. Although he looked really thick-skinned, he really couldn't refute it until now. Other than that, Chen Guang also received an unexpected surprise. He didn't know who had reposted his first pencil sharpening video on YouTube. It was definitely an illegal reposting, and he didn't get a single cent in copyright fees. But that video had also achieved an amazing influence on YouTube and must die. Foreign netizens exclaimed that this person had the mysterious power from the East. He didn't get any money, but he did get some fame. Just as Chen Guang was making fun of Wang Wu Taixing, there was a thump in the heavenly Holy Grail. A pencil more than 100 feet tall suddenly emerged from the sea of clouds, and then rose from the ground with the momentum of stabbing the sky. The second world in a cup was completed. It was the most useless world of pencil sharpening. The same video was blooming both at home and abroad. The fact that he was the best person on this planet at sharpening pencils had been recognized by the vast majority of people who knew about this. Naturally, it was completed. As the divine pencil statue rose from the sea of clouds, strands of power of faith gathered from the distant void. Chen Guang stood by the window of the hotel with a cup in his hand. He gently took a sip of the fresh and spicy Longjing tea. He faced the morning sun and was blown by the morning breeze. His style soared into the sky. He looked at the flickering power of faith and was full of smugness. Today, brother has become a little stronger. Brother's painstaking efforts were not in vain. Although I can't earn a single cent from this online celebrity, it's worth it just for the sake of easily erecting a divine statue. He drank another mouthful of water and entered the world in a cup. When he stood in the sea of clouds, he saw Lioli moving around the Ao Tuo statue and the pencil statue. He saw that she was wrapped in fog, flying up and down, very busy. Lord Lioli. I'm pretty awesome, right? I erected your divine statue while lying down. How are you going to reward me? Chen Guang was in a good mood and said happily. Unexpectedly, Lioli glared at him fiercely from high up in the sky. You still have the cheek to say that? Look at the second divine statue yourself. What the hell did you erect? Chen Guang was speechless. It's a pencil. Is there a problem? Idiot. Look clearly at the difference between the two divine statues yourself. If I were you, I'd find a piece of tofu and knock myself to death. What a disgrace. He didn't know what she was busy with, but she spoke as if she was shooting a gun. It was as if speaking one more sentence was tiring. Chen Guang could only look at it himself. Sure enough, it was extremely painful. It turned out that the power of faith attached to the divine pencil statue was really small and thin. Compared to the alto statue, it was very persistent. This was not surprising. There were not many people in the world who would deliberately practice sharpening pencils. It was even rarer to think of who was the best pencil sharpener in history. It was only because his video had some influence that he more or less got some power of faith. However, it probably didn't even reach 10 million people. Apart from that, these people's worship of his pencil sharpening skills was far less than their worship of the god of racing. The power of faith produced by the two, be it in quality or quantity, was completely different. Your second divine statue is filled with water. What's the use of having a basket? The power of faith isn't even 1,000th of the previous one. You're cheating me, right? Lord Lioli, who felt that she had been fooled, glared at him from afar in annoyance. Then, she ignored him and waved her hand again, forcing him out of the cup. Chen Guang was also embarrassed. How can you blame me for this? A mosquito's leg isn't meat. It's clearly you who gave it. The cup is too weak. Come to think of it, seeing how busy she was, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Forget it, what will come sooner or later. No matter what she's doing, it won't kill me, right? He went out and went downstairs. He printed the long article he wrote last night into a book and made a few copies. He held it in his hand and went straight to the provincial hospital. It was time to let Su Lijing know how powerful he was. Even if I'm an ant, as long as the poison is strong, I can still bite you until you swell up. Chapter 390. Xiao Deng, Xiaoren said you sat in this ward for the whole day yesterday. When did the relationship between you two become this good? How come I didn't know about it? In Wang Ren's ward, a hale and hearty old man was chatting casually as he put the peeled crystal pear that his assistant brought to him into his mouth. He chewed lightly, and it was crunchy. This old man was Su Lijing. He was 65 this year, but he didn't look that old. He had a head of short white hair, and there weren't many wrinkles on his square face. His eyes were especially cold, unlike the muddy eyes of an ordinary old man. After being asked a simple question, Deng Xinghua, the vice principal of Jianhuan Academy, shivered. He laughed and said, Elder Su, isn't it a holiday? There aren't many things to do in school. I saw that Xiao Wang's injury was quite serious. Since I have nothing to do, and I live close to here, I came to see if there was anything I could do to help. So what if I have nothing to do? You, the vice principal, are quite free. Su Lijing glanced at him and didn't say anything else. Deng Xinghua saw that Su Lijing didn't ask anymore, and he was annoyed. Xiao Zhou already said that Chen Guang was coming to apologize to Wang Ren. If when Chen Guang apologized, a leader of the academy was here to say something, and the words passed from Wang Ren's mouth to Su Lijing's ears, the vice principal would definitely look at him differently. Yesterday, he used his thick skin to force old Tong to leave, but he waited for a whole day, and he didn't even see a shadow of him. When he went back to ask, Xiao Zhou almost cried from scolding him, and he said that Chen Guang said it would be tomorrow or the day after. Therefore, Deng Xinghua came early in the morning, and he was even more friendly than Wang Ren's wife. He didn't expect that Chen Guang didn't wait for him, but Su Lijing, the mysterious big shot, also came today. Wang Ren helped Deng Xinghua's real friend to take credit, and he said that Deng Xinghua also stayed in the ward for a whole day yesterday. Dad, brother Deng specially came over to accompany me. Don't say that about him. Wang Ren saw that Deng Xinghua was inexplicably reprimanded, so he quickly spoke up for him. Unexpectedly, Su Lijing's face stiffened. Call me uncle. Deng Xinghua, who was at the side, was extremely embarrassed. This was a secret that everyone in the world knew, but Su Lijing always liked to cover it up. It made him, an outsider, feel very uncomfortable. Oh, yes, uncle. By the way, has that Chen Guang been fired yet? Why didn't you tell him to get lost? Wang Ren suddenly said, that bastard. Last time at the Jianhuan Academy, I tolerated him and let him do as he pleased. But this time, he beat me up like this. Uncle, you have to help me. Su Lijing's expression turned cold again. Deng Xinghua, who was next to him, also looked at him eagerly. Today was the first time he talked about this matter. Su Lijing replied, that's true. That student called Chen Guang was too aggressive. But I have my own plans for this matter. You don't need to ask anymore. Deng Xinghua also raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that Su Lijing would accept his nonsense. Old man, you really don't know what's going on. I was just pretending to be kind, why did you believe me? Even though Deng Xinghua had always been thick-skinned, he still felt his face turn red. It was no wonder. Not many people would dare to talk bad about Wang Ren in front of Su Lijing. Don't think that Su Lijing didn't just scold Wang Ren in front of him. In the past, when did this prince of the opposite sex get into trouble? Didn't this old man order someone to clean up after him? After all, he was his own flesh and blood, his only son. Even if his bones were broken, his tendons were still connected. That's right. Uncle, look at my nose. I don't even know if it will grow back. Wang Ren pointed at his nose and said, I can't take this lying down. All right, I have my own arrangements. After you leave the hospital, don't go back to school. I will arrange another job for you. Xiao Deng, come out for a while. I have some things to ask you about the school. Su Lijing stood up. Deng Xinghua followed him out with his head drooping. Su Lijing turned around and looked at him coldly. He took a deep breath and said, Xiao Deng, I understand your work ability. When I arranged for Xiao Ren to go to the building loop school, I hoped that you would bring him to the right path. You have disappointed me. Well, not only did I fail to flatter him, I even became the emperor's slanderous villain. Deng Xinghua felt wronged and helpless at the same time. What kind of person is Wang Ren? It's not like he became like this after coming to the building loop school. How can you blame me for this? It's you who spoiled him too much. That's why he became so lawless. Even I, the vice dean, have to follow behind him and flatter him. If I had a choice, I would also want to be a righteous person, okay? Even if his heart was about to vomit blood, Deng Xinghua didn't dare to refute. He could only nod and bow. It's my fault. I will have a good talk with Xiao Wang in the future. At this moment, Vice Dean Deng suddenly saw a figure behind Su Lijing. His eyes suddenly lit up. The person who apologized had finally come. Chen Guang, you finally came. Deng Xinghua said loudly with joy. Su Lijing turned around and saw Chen Guang standing behind him. Chen Guang also raised his eyes to look at the old man before him. Even without Vice Principal Deng's introduction, he could tell that this old man was the Vice Principal of the Su University, who had brought Wang Ren into the school's tumor. You are Chen Guang. Su Lijing frowned and looked down at Chen Guang. He suppressed his anger. These days, he had heard this student's name many times. He really didn't expect that he would dare to appear in front of him. Even if Wu Shan is willing to speak up for you, you are still a junior. You are too arrogant. Chen Guang didn't care about Su Lijing's scrutinizing gaze. He copied him and looked at the vice dean with a scrutinizing gaze. From this person, Chen Guang felt a pressure that he hadn't felt for a long time. It was even more oppressive than when Wu Shan came and went in a hurry. Immersed in learning all year round and holding power, Su Lijing had the aura of a person in a high position. He didn't need to say too much. A simple expression, a frown, and a focused gaze could make Xiao Xiaoxin feel fear. However, no matter how high your position is or how many things you have done, the Su Lijing I know is only Wang Ren's backing. That's all. He suddenly grinned, you are Vice Dean Su. I have long heard of your name. Today, you really live up to your reputation. Su Lijing frowned even more. Obviously, he didn't hear a trace of respect or fear from Chen Guang's tone. This was completely different from his impression of a student. The vice dean of a university was a completely different concept from the principal of a junior high school. Moreover, this was Gokyo University, one of the top 10 universities in the country. The older one grew, the more they understood the power of power. Didn't Wu Shan teach him how to be a proper person? Did he really think that I, Su Lijing, was a pushover that could be easily bullied? Didn't your parents teach you to respect your teachers? Su Lijing's face turned cold as he spoke again. Chen Guang smiled again, they did. I understand that it is natural to respect one's teachers, but they also taught me that some teachers don't need to be respectful. Although Su Lijing was an elder, his impression of Chen Guang was extremely bad before they met. Now, he had only said one sentence, and he was already talking in such a tone that he even brought up Chen Guang's parents. Who the hell would be polite to him? You! Su Lijing was instantly enraged. Deng Xinghua saw that the situation wasn't looking good, so he quickly came over and patted Chen Guang's back, trying to push his head down. Elder Su, you misunderstood. The day before yesterday, Chen Guang told his form teacher, Teacher Zhou, that he felt guilty for hurting little Wang, so he specially came over to apologize. Chapter 391. He's here to apologize. Su Lijing, who was about to lose his temper, raised his eyebrows and looked at Chen Guang's dissatisfied face. He doesn't look like he's going to apologize. Deng Xinghua pressed twice, but Chen Guang's head didn't move. Deputy Dean Deng, let go. You can't press my head down. What are you here for? Su Lijing gradually became vigilant. He made a slight gesture behind his back, and the two men in black who had been standing at the door gradually moved forward. These two men had the aura of a soldier. As a member of the central think tank, Su Lijing was indeed equipped with military bodyguards. He knew that this young man had a bad temper and was very good at fighting. Su Lijing was an old man, of course, he couldn't compete with the young man in physical strength. No matter how much power he had, he could still be knocked down with one punch. Seeing this, how could Chen Guang not understand what Su Lijing was thinking? Didn't Deputy Dean Deng say that I'm here to apologize? Facing the two approaching military bodyguards, Chen Guang's expression didn't change. Su Lijing hesitated again. He thought, maybe this kid was warned by Wu Shan. Although I let him go this time, he still wants to ease the relationship. Therefore, his current unconvinced appearance was only due to his unwillingness to accept it. No wonder, no matter how rebellious a brat was, he would still have to listen to the words of an adult, right? Thinking of this, Su Lijing's old face showed a slight smile. Really? Well, I've received your apology. You can go now. Chen Guang shook his head. I hit Wang Ren. If I want to apologize, of course I have to apologize in front of him. Deputy Dean Su, how can you accept it on his behalf? I didn't even convey my sincerity. It's the same if you convey it to me. You can go now. No matter what, Chen Guang insisted on entering the ward. Su Lijing began to be vigilant. Could it be that this kid wanted to break into the ward and hurt Wang Ren? In fact, Su Lijing guessed wrong. Although Chen Guang wanted to strangle Wang Ren, he was not stupid. He knew what awaited him if he really did that. He had to go in because he had to tell Wang Ren and Su Lijing about what he had in his hands. That was the best way to achieve the best effect. At this time, Deng Xinghua also realized that the situation was not right. In his heart, he was cursing little Zhou to death. King managed to convince me. CK, if you haven't settled it, you should have told me earlier. Why did I get involved in this mess? Am I not asking for trouble? Deng Xinghua grabbed Chen Guang's hand from the side and tried to pull him away. Chen Guang, are you done? Elder Su asked you to leave, so why aren't you leaving? Chen Guang turned his head and looked at Deng Xinghua. No matter what, you are the vice dean of our Jinhuan Academy, right? Even a dog should have some self-respect, right? How could you say that? Without waiting for Deng Xinghua's expression to change, Su Lijing shouted, Chen Guang. Think about it carefully. Who are you? If you are not Wu Shan, why are you standing here talking to me? Don't think that just because I agreed to let you go, you don't know what's good for you. Wu Shan's face is not that useful. Chen Guang was confused. Didn't Uncle Wu communicate with you? Communicate with what? This time, it was Su Lijing's turn to be confused. Chen Guang suddenly understood. For a moment, he didn't know what to think. He thought that after Wu Shan heard his statement, he would immediately contact Su Lijing to clear his name, but in the end, he didn't do anything. Forget it. You have already apologized. You can leave now. Su Lijing waved his hand and ordered them to leave. The two military bodyguards understood and suddenly rushed forward. They each reached out and wanted to grab Chen Guang's shoulders and throw him out. Chen Guang hadn't achieved his goal today. How could he throw him away so easily? He originally wanted to talk nicely, but he didn't expect that he still had to fight. After stuffing the printed books into his trouser pocket, Chen Guang immediately made his move. His left and right fists punched the chest of the two military bodyguards at the same time. The two of them were quiet and didn't show their abilities. However, since they were sent to be Su Lijing's bodyguards, they obviously had some real skills. The two of them looked disdainful. They didn't dodge, but both of them locked their hands in front of them. They planned to grab Chen Guang's fists. However, they didn't expect a huge force to come. How could the two of them hold Chen Guang's arms? Chen Guang's fists shook off the two's hands and landed on their chests. The two of them let out a muffled groan. They felt that their chests were so tight that the air in their lungs was almost sucked out by Chen Guang's punch. The two of them retreated at the same time and hit the wall of the hospital. The two professional soldiers endured the discomfort in their bodies and immediately wanted to grab their guns. Su Lijing saw that the situation wasn't looking good and quickly shouted, "Enough. Stop." He was very clear about the standards of his two bodyguards. They weren't just there for show. They were the real elites. However, under Chen Guang's fists, the two elite bodyguards couldn't even withstand a single move. They were both knocked back with a muffled groan. This was a junior that Wu Shan thought highly of. He didn't even hesitate to fall out with Su Lijing because of this person. Although Wu Shan said that this person was a friend of his daughter, Wu Tong, Su Lijing, who was also in a high position, didn't believe Wu Shan's words at all. "For your daughter's friend, not your son-in-law, you actually want to fight me to the death. There must be something fishy going on. Only a ghost would believe that." He had long heard that the grandson of a real big shot in the military was studying at Gokyo University. Su Lijing had been asking around for 3 years but to no avail. The big shot in the military hid this matter very well. Now, it seemed that Chen Guang was very likely that person's grandson. Otherwise, there was no reason for Wu Shan to think so highly of him. Wu Shan was even willing to give up his own wife and child. He was definitely not a man of character. He must be plotting something. If Su Lijing had some doubts before, now that he saw Chen Guang force the two bodyguards to retreat and recalled his arrogant attitude from the beginning, how could Su Lijing not panic? He remembered something else. Right, Su Lijing had heard someone talk about that young man by chance. It was said that he had a great ambition at a young age. He didn't want to be a soldier like his grandfather, nor did he want to be in the economy like his grandfather. Instead, he was especially interested in environmental protection. Gokyo University, environmental science major. That's right, it's Chen Guang. No wonder he was a big shot in the academic world. His brain was really good. In a split second, Su Lijing's mind went through countless thoughts. He finally made up his mind. He was so scared that he almost broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't dare to let the two bodyguards pull out their guns. If that person knew that his grandson was being held at gunpoint by his own bodyguards, even 10 Su Lijings wouldn't be enough. Not only did Su Lijing's sudden eruption startle the two bodyguards, but even Chen Guang couldn't react in time. Little Chen. Sure enough, heroes come from the young. Your kung fu really opened this old man's eyes. You're indeed a tiger from a family of generals. Even if you're not a soldier, you must have trained a lot since you were young, right? A person's potential was really forced out. Su Lijing's old body was extremely agile as he stood between Chen Guang and the two bodyguards. His face instantly changed into a bright smile. He patted Chen Guang's shoulder and said with a smile. This sudden change in the situation really made people scratch their heads in confusion. At this moment, Chen Guang's face was also covered in a dumbfounded expression. When he saw the two bodyguards trying to pull out their guns, he became bold and decided to make the first move. He intended to take the two of them down and seize their weapons to cripple their resistance. If there's a need, he would even point a gun at Su Lijing's head to let him know that he's playing with his life today. But in the end, what happened? Did this old guy take the wrong medicine? I originally planned to play with my life on the line. Where did your amiable look come from? Your face-changing technique is so skillful that I can't look straight at it. The world is changing too fast, and I can't keep up with the rhythm. What the hell is a tiger from a family of generals? Logically speaking, my dad was indeed a soldier. If the cook squad leader can also be considered a general, then I'm indeed a tiger from a family of generals. Seeing that Chen Guang was stunned, Su Lijing thought that he had guessed correctly and was very proud of himself. In the huge Sichuan province, dozens of people with the same status as him knew that the kid was hiding his identity and studying in Gokyo University. They all racked their brains to dig him out and only hoped that from now on, they would exhaust their wisdom to hug a thigh. But these people all had no way to hug a thigh, and now he had unexpectedly caught him. No wonder this kid was so reckless and fearless. You can indeed be fearless. In the whole country, there are not many people who can make you fear. If there are, then most of them must be in Yanjing City. In Wujing City, you should be able to do whatever you want. To be able to dig you out from the tens of thousands of students in Gokyo University, Wang Ren's beating was worth it. Vice Principal Su, please excuse me. Then, can I go and apologize to Wang Ren now? Although Chen Guang didn't understand what had happened, he still decided to act according to the original plan. He couldn't be dragged into the ditch by this old guy's unconventional way of doing things. Hey! What are you apologizing for, little Chen? Let me tell you, Xiao Ren deserved to be beaten. You did a good job. It's already a good thing that you didn't kill him. Su Lijing was still smiling. As he spoke, he continued to pat Chen Guang's shoulder intimately. His eyes were extremely ambiguous, as if to say, you know, I also know. F***ck. Old sir, please show some respect. I was planning to send your son to prison, but your attitude is making it very difficult for me to do that. Chen Guang was really speechless. He clearly came here with the urge to chop someone up. Although the first half of the story was very intense, it was still under his control. Suddenly, the style changed. The old man couldn't accept it. How am I going to finish acting cool like this? Moreover, I'm about 40 years younger than you. You keep calling me little Chen and patting me on the shoulder as if you're an equal. I really wonder if you're trying to sugarcoat me. That. Vice Principal Su, I have something here. You can take a look first. I can contact a friend. He's very influential on Weibo and has more than 4 million fans. If you don't take back the punishment that you gave to Teacher Zhua, Senior Hua Ling, and Senior Zhong Yu, I'll let him. As Chen Guang spoke, he took out the booklet that he had prepared earlier. Chapter 392. Frankly speaking, Su Lijing's sudden change had indeed caused Chen Guang to be at a loss, so he had taken out the things in advance. Apart from that, he felt that his threats were not imposing at all. It sounded like he wanted to discuss things with him. The moment the words left his mouth, old Master Guang regretted it. This wasn't the effect I wanted. I should have slapped one long article on Wang Ren's face first, then turned around and slapped the other one on Su Lijing's face. You old dog. Look at all the crap your son has done. It is because of your connivance and protection that this sinful bastard poisoned my school, killed my classmates, and forced my teachers to do what they wanted. If you don't take back your orders, I'll definitely fight you to the death and ruin your reputation with this scoundrel of a son. Then I'll ask for sky-high prices and pay back on the spot. Now, I've completely lost my imposing manner. But before he could finish speaking, Su Lijing had already snatched the booklet away and started reading with a frown, not giving him a chance to incite his anger. Su Lijing read very quickly. He read 10 lines at a glance, but he could read every word clearly. Deng Xinghua also leaned over to take a look. Su Lijing turned his head and glared at him. Deng Xinghua shrank his neck and hid behind the booklet. Right now, this vice president was also feeling very conflicted. His outlook on life must have suffered quite a big blow. About a few minutes later, Su Lijing finished reading Chen Guang's long article that was stained with blood and tears. Chen Guang stared at him and paused. He felt that he couldn't be fooled by this Maitreya Buddha image. He still had to say what needed to be said. He coughed lightly. Vice President Su, you've read it clearly, right? Everything I've written in this article is true. You know everything that Wang Ren has done in school all these years, right? He thought that Su Lijing would quibble, but this old man paused for a moment and looked at him with a very complicated gaze. I know. Now was the time. This opportunity couldn't be missed. He couldn't be fooled by this old man's sugar-coated bullets. Fire! Su Lijing. Chen Guang suddenly raised his voice and said heavily, it's because of you, Su Lijing, that this black sheep, Wang Ren, can act like a tyrant in the school. Using the power in his hands, he coerces students, asks for bribes, and often uses the excuse of expulsion to force girls to submit. What's more, his lust was unquenchable. Whenever he saw a beautiful woman, he would be extremely bold. He would either suppress or force them. Once they refused to submit to him, he would make it difficult for them to move forward in school. A dignified university, a place to nurture the pillars of the country, had become Wang Ren's harem. Their learning is corrupted, and their morals are no longer what they used to be. Even the leaders of the academy have become people like Deng Xinghua who fawns on the rich and powerful and flatters them. As a scholar, you should have taken the responsibility of researching knowledge as your duty, but you planted a son in the school and allowed him to do whatever he wanted. What do you take the school for? Where do you place the 40,000 teachers and students in the school? Do you have any sense of shame on your old face? Are you worthy of the country's trust in you? How could he live up to his reputation as a scholar? How could he live up to his position as the vice principal? In the end, Chen Guang did not bring out the 3 bombshells of Ding Lu, the young nurse, and the student who was beaten into a vegetative state. These 3 matters were the final hammer that he planned to use to send Wang Ren to hell. If he exposed them in advance, Su Lijing would be prepared for it. He did not say it now because he wanted to pretend that he did not know anything in front of Su Lijing to reduce his vigilance. Su Lijing was scolded so harshly that he was momentarily stunned. He looked at Chen Guang in a daze. He thought to himself, how could a prince with such a high status purposely inquire so much about Wang Ren and stand in front of me to scold me? Could it be that the higher-ups were already dissatisfied with this matter, but they thought of the practical things I've done all these years and the contributions I've made, so they didn't want to reprimand me in person, so they simply sent a junior to remind me? Deng Xinghua, who was at the side, did not know what Su Lijing was thinking about. He was completely shocked by Chen Guang's scolding and quickly jumped out. Chen Guang, shut up. How could you be like this to Su? Vice Dean Deng was only halfway through his sentence when Su Lijing turned around and fiercely slapped his face. Deng Xinghua. Wang Ren has become more and more impudent in Jianhuan Academy all these years, and it's all because of your scoundrel friend. You shut up. Get lost. Deng Xinghua was in pain from this slap. He did not understand what was going on, but he felt a chill in his heart when he saw Su Lijing's eyes that looked like he wanted to eat someone. Everything was done by Wang Ren, and I only cleaned up his mess under your suggestion. Why does it sound like I'm the main culprit from your tone? This is not good, right? I can't accept this. But no matter how dissatisfied he was, Deng Xinghua did not dare to say a word of rebuttal. Chen Guang only looked at Su Lijing's performance coldly. He knew that Deng Xinghua's slap was for nothing, and he also knew that Su Lijing might be deliberately shirking responsibility. What kind of joke is this? One Deng Xinghua dared to make Wang Ren so crazy. Is it possible? Aren't you the one he's really relying on, Elder Su? Get lost. Su Lijing shouted at Deng Xinghua again. Deng Xinghua knew that he could not stay here any longer, so he quickly shrank his neck and ran away. When this person was far away, Su Lijing turned around and looked at Chen Guang. I know I was wrong. Ha! Chen Guang was at a loss again. This person was too straightforward, wasn't he? I will reflect on this matter, and I will also make Xiao Ren reflect on his mistakes behind closed doors. Thank you, little Chen, for reminding me. Actually, other than the things you wrote on the list, there are other things that I know that you should be clear about. You didn't say it because you didn't want to make things too difficult for me. I understand. As for how Zhuo Jingxi and the others will be dealt with, I will inform them. Anyway, thank you. Su Lijing looked at Chen Guang, his attitude extremely sincere. Reflect? That's it. Chen Guang felt a chill in his heart when he heard this. The things that Su Lijing said he didn't say were probably referring to the misfortune of Ding Lu and the others. 2 lives, a young man's life, and so many staff members of the academy who had been corrupted by Wang Ren's methods of profit or coercion. Students who were supposed to be the pride of the heavens had been ruined by your good son for the rest of their lives. Is that all you have to say is reflect on your mistakes? Is that all you have to do is reflect on your mistakes behind closed doors? Su Lijing, the look of repentance on your face not only doesn't make me happy, but it also makes me especially disappointed. Do you know how many people your son has ruined? I don't approve of only reflecting on his mistakes. Shouldn't he receive the punishment he deserves? This kind of person, it wouldn't be too much to feed him a bullet, right? I think that Wang Ren should go to jail, Chen Guang said tentatively. Su Lijing was stunned. He stared at Chen Guang for a long time. That can't be, right? Chen Guang suddenly laughed. You really think so? Chapter 393. Su Lijing was creeped out by Chen Guang's smile, but he was wary of Chen Guang's identity as a tiger from a family of generals, so he did not know how to answer him. No matter what, I'm considered a meritorious official, right? It's wrong to indulge the younger generation, but it didn't cause too much damage. Chen Guang suddenly felt that he had nothing to say to this person. Even though Wu Shan was a typical official, at least he still had justice in his heart. Su Lijing, on the other hand, stood at the other extreme. He and Su Lijing had different goals and could not work together. Forget it, I'll just take care of the rest one by one. Why waste my breath on Su Lijing? Anyway, I've achieved my goal, haven't I? Fine, I won't argue with you. That's it. Just now, you said that you'd better cancel the punishment for my teacher and classmate. Chen Guang threw down this sentence and prepared to leave. At that moment, the ward door suddenly opened. Wang Ren seemed to have heard the commotion outside. He did not seem to understand the situation. Earlier, when he was alone, he heard Chen Guang's voice. He remembered that Deng Xingguo vaguely mentioned that Chen Guang was coming to apologize. Therefore, he could not sit still on the bed. He hated Chen Guang to the core. If he had the chance, he wanted to step on Chen Guang's face. Now, you actually came to me. How can I let you go just like that? Even though Wang Ren could not understand why Su Lijing refused to agree to his request to fire Chen Guang, but since the brat came to ask for a beating, it was not too much for him to go out and vent his anger, right? Therefore, he opened the door and saw Chen Guang. He used about 5 seconds to organize his words and decide on his next move. Chen Guang. He grinned and shouted Chen Guang's name. He raised his hand and wanted to give this thorn in his flesh a tight slap. His hand was raised in mid-air, but Chen Guang had already turned around and looked at him coldly. Humph. Wang Ren thought, you came to apologize without any sincerity. What do you mean by that look? Aren't you quite capable? If you have the guts, why don't you make a move now? Do you dare to make a move in front of my dad's bodyguards? No matter how good you are at fighting, can you beat the bodyguards sent by the army? Wang Ren was so excited that he raised his hand higher and higher. His chest was filled with anger and hot blood. Now you know to apologize. Too late. I will kick you out of the school first, and then crush you to death bit by bit. Then, he waved his hand, completely not noticing that Su Lijing's face had turned pale, nor did he notice that Chen Guang was staring at him as if he was looking at a dead fish. He also didn't notice that the two military bodyguards he was relying on didn't dare to look at Chen Guang from beginning to end. In the end, his hand didn't hit Chen Guang's face. Instead, he felt a dull pain in his chest. Then, his fat body flew in the direction of the ward's door, and then he fell hard into the ward. His back hit the floor cabinet, making a loud noise. Then, there was a series of cracking sounds on his back. He didn't know which bone was broken. Wang Rin used a little strength to stand up, but there was a heart-wrenching pain in his back. He couldn't move. He wailed. Chen Guang slowly retracted his foot that was in mid-air, turned around to look at Su Lijing and shrugged. You can't blame me for this. The expressions on Su Lijing's face were too colorful. There was anger, confusion, panic, and perhaps a trace of unwillingness. Chen Guang thought he would be furious, but instead, he took a deep breath. It's okay. Good kick. Xiao Ren deserves it. At that moment, a man in military uniform suddenly stepped out of the elevator. He stared and saw the two military bodyguards standing beside Su Lijing. He said loudly, Zhao Hu, why did you two send a distress signal for no reason? I was busy here, and I was the closest to you, so I threw it over. This Zhao Hu was one of Su Lijing's bodyguards. He looked at the newcomer with a bitter face. Captain Shui, it's a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. This person was Shui Lin. She knew Su Lijing. She first nodded at him. Greetings, Elder Su. At that moment, Chen Guang turned around. Shui Lin turned her head and saw him. Brother Chen Guang. Why are you here? Ha! Chen Guang glanced at Shui Lin. His mind was a mess. He seemed to have seen this person before, but he couldn't remember his name. Who are you? I'm Shui Lin. Did you guys just fight? No wonder Zhao Hu sent a distress signal in a panic. These two people are still alive. Thank God. Last time when he exchanged blows with Chen Guang, Shui Lin was defeated without any resistance. He admired the strong the most. Now, his tone was naturally filled with respect and some joy. Chen Guang impatiently waved his hand and turned to leave. Don't bother me. I'm not in a good mood. It was rare for Shui Lin to block Chen Guang. How could she let him go so easily? Brother Chen Guang, wait a minute. I want to learn inner force. Chen Guang suddenly turned his head. His Qilin arm attacked. He punched Shui Lin's stomach. This white-faced guy was caught off guard. He was hit by Chen Guang's punch. He covered his stomach and squatted down. How could he keep up with Chen Guang? After punching him again, Chen Guang was in a good mood. He really couldn't stand Su Lijing's attitude of, we are the superior. My men ride on the heads of the commoners and it's natural for them to do whatever they want. But don't hit a smiling face. Su Lijing suddenly lowered his stance. His fist really couldn't hit his old face. He was an old man after all. Now that someone had delivered himself to his doorstep to be beaten up, he could at least vent the pent-up anger in his heart. Instantly, he felt much better. Shui Lin held her stomach and squatted on the ground for 3 minutes. With Zhao Hu's help, she stood up shakily. Damn it. I might have internal injuries. Captain Shui, who is this guy? He even dares to hit you. Zhao Hu was also from Shui Lin's Special Forces team. He was clear about the captain's ability. He had never seen him knocked down with one punch. Just now, the two of them easily knocked him down. But how could Captain Shui be so weak in front of him? Shui Lin glared at him. You came out to be a bodyguard. Have you forgotten the military discipline? Who told you to ask so many questions? Then, Shui Lin said goodbye to Su Lijing, turned around, and rushed down the stairs. Today, Senior Captain Shui had once again received the teachings of a folk master. He firmly believed that as long as he didn't give up, sooner or later, he would be able to move this master to introduce an inner force master to him. Seeing how Shui Lin cared about Qin Guang so much, Su Lijing's back was almost soaked in cold sweat. This time, there's really no escape. Luckily, I reacted in time. Otherwise, my life's work would be ruined. That was close. He quickly took out his phone. No matter what, he had to coax the person first. As for Wang Ren, who was injured on top of his injuries, he was in a mess again. At that moment, Su Lijing still didn't know that he and Qin Guang were actually not the same type of person. He might be barely considered a superior, but Qin Guang put himself in the position of a civilian. He didn't accept Su Lijing's so-called reflection and closed-door reflection. If one only needed to reflect on their mistakes and didn't have to pay any price, then what was the use of the law? Although he always heard that the law was a toy of those in power, Qin Guang didn't agree with it. On the other side, Qin Guang received a call from Zhuo Jingxi before he even reached the hotel parking lot. Her mood was a little complicated. The punishment that was already set in stone was inexplicably revoked. She didn't know what exactly Qin Guang did, but she was sure that it had something to do with him. Qin Guang laughed it off with her. He only said that the heavenly secrets couldn't be revealed and that he would tell her in detail when he came back. On the other side, Hua Ling and Zhong Yu also called one after another. Both of their punishments were cancelled for no reason. Qin Guang just chuckled, with a look that said, "I'm awesome, come and worship me." As soon as Qin Guang returned to school, he was immediately stopped by Zhuo Jingxi, Hua Ling, and Zhong Yu. The three girls dragged him to the Qingye pavilion outside the school. Zhuo Jingxi acted as the host and rewarded him while interrogating him. Although Zhuo Jingxi had already accepted her fate to go abroad and was even willing to accept Qin Guang's sponsorship, if she could stay in school and stay in old Madame Xu's laboratory, she still wasn't willing to leave. It wasn't that Zhuo Jingxi didn't want to go abroad to study. As Qin Guang saw and old Madame Xu said, the old Madame's health was deteriorating. She was very grateful to Zhuo Jingxi. No matter what, Zhuo Jingxi was more willing to stay by Xu Lirong's side. She hoped to be able to produce results as soon as possible before the old madam completely collapsed. Let me tell you, at that time, I stood in front of that old man Su Lijing and slapped this thing on Su Lijing's face for him to see. After he saw it, he was ashamed and embarrassed. I said that he didn't dare to say anything. I called him an old thief and said that he had no sense of shame. He didn't even dare to fart on his face. He nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice and said that he would immediately withdraw the punishment. Not even 5 minutes after I turned around and left, your calls came one after another. Qin Guang laughed mischievously. Bah! We've heard of Su Lijing countless times. How could he be as weak as you say? Fine, I know you're afraid that we'll feel sorry for him. How much money did you spend? Tell me. Zhuo Jingxi rolled her eyes at him. How much money could he have? Zhong Yu picked up a piece of twice-cooked pork with her chopsticks and sent it to Qin Guang's mouth. Come, open your mouth. Aw, did you see Hua Ling's car when she moved over? Zhuo Jingxi was puzzled. A Passat. What's so great about it? Zhong Yu didn't understand. Zhuo Jingxi turned to look at Qin Guang. This is quite different from the Qin Guang I know. Chen Guang chewed on the twice-cooked pork that Zhong Yu fed him. He pouted and said, I explained to them that it was a phaeton, but they didn't believe me. Pfft, are you bullying me because I don't understand English? It's written so clearly that it's a Passat. Zhong Yu insisted. Zhuo Jingxi finally understood that this kid was trapped in his own trap. She could only laugh happily. She thought of the day when this kid was buying a car. He stared at the seller as if he wanted to eat her alive and asked the 4S shop to change the logo. Now he's stupid. Chapter 394. Chen Guang rolled his eyes at Zhuo Jingxi's laughter and stopped struggling. He waved his hand and said, I really didn't spend any money, and I can't possibly compensate Su Lijing. He doesn't care about this bit of money, and I wouldn't do such a despicable thing. Also, I do have some connections that can protect me, but Su Lijing insisted that he wanted to vent his anger on you guys, so there's no room for negotiation. I really thought he was something, but after I went there, he was very tough and overbearing at first, and he had 2 bodyguards with him, looking cool and handsome. But I beat up his 2 bodyguards first, and he immediately chickened out. Then I kicked Wang Ren again, and that bastard's spine was probably broken, but Su Lijing said it was a good kick. It's not just you guys who don't understand, even I don't know what's going on. Alright, no matter what, the result is a happy ending, so let's not care about the details. Zhong Yu patted the table. Come, let's have a toast to celebrate our General Chen's victory. At this moment, Hua Ling, who had just finished reading the booklet, put down a few pieces of paper and looked up at Chen Guang. Why isn't there anything about little Lu in here? The atmosphere in the private room suddenly cooled down. Although Hua Ling also knew that she shouldn't mention sad things when everyone was happy, this matter was stuck in her throat, and she had to get it out. Chen Guang first looked at everyone, then suddenly downed a large glass of wine. I didn't mention it now because I can't let Su Lijing be on guard, but this matter isn't over yet. Senior Hua Ling, when you all settle down, we'll go to Senior Ding Lu's hometown. This was another night of drinking with the 3 women, and Chen Guang was very tired. He divided them into 3 batches before he finally carried them all back to Zhuo Jingxi's house. Fortunately, it wasn't very far. But it wasn't completely without benefits. Towards Hua Ling and Zhong Yu, of course, he wouldn't act recklessly. But as for Zhuo Jingxi, he wasn't so polite. Anyway, he had already taken advantage of her. He worked hard as a porter, so shouldn't he get some benefits? Unfortunately, Hua Ling was now living in Zhuo Jingxi's house and occupying the living room. Even if he had the heart to kill the thief, he was powerless to do anything about it. All he could do was casually take advantage of her and return home with his tail between his legs. In fact, sometimes Chen Guang looked down on himself. Why can't I control my hands? To think that he trusted him so much that he could get drunk in front of him without the slightest bit of vigilance. Weren't you testing the old man's character? I'm not kidding. I can't stand the test. The next morning, Zhuo Jingxi and the other 2 returned to the school's laboratory. Old Madame Xu had personally called to invite them. Luo Jin had arrived early. He didn't know what had happened. Inexplicably, the demerit punishment on his head was gone. He was also at a loss. When he received a call from Zhuo Jingxi informing him to come to the laboratory, he was even more confused. Teacher Zhuo, what's going on? Luo Jin was puzzled. The 3 girls looked at each other in unison. It was the straightforward Zhong Yu who said, it's nothing. Senior brother Luo, just treat it as a dream. After saying that, the 3 girls went back to their own work. Because of Su Lijing, the experiment had been stopped for 2 days. There was a lot of backlog of work, and they were indeed very busy. Of course, it wasn't that they were so busy that they didn't have time to say a word. It was just that the three of them really didn't want to talk to Luo Jin. With Chen Guang as a mirror, there was no need to say much about Luo Jin's character. Luo Jin suddenly felt that he was no longer a person in this laboratory. He was not wrong. When the next semester started, Xue Jingxi really planned to change to another graduate student. In any case, there were already 3 girls in the laboratory, so she might as well change all of them to a female army. As for Chen Guang, he went to a tea house near Vice Principal Han's residential area. After sitting and waiting for a while, Guoming and Old Man Han arrived one after another. Guoming's eyes were filled with excitement. Are you ready to move? I can do it any time. Old Man Han also suppressed his excitement. I have been secretly asking around in the academy for the past few days. Many people are starting to get restless. I don't know what happened, but I heard that Deng Xinghua had offended Su Lijing. Yesterday, Old Tong and Principal Ku had an appointment for a long time. I guess this matter has something to do with Su Lijing. Also, why did Su Lijing suddenly revoke the punishment given to Xiao Zhua and the others? What else have you been doing these few days? Chen Guang looked at the 2 extremely excited people. After thinking for a while, he still couldn't hide it from them. So he told them the truth about Wu Tong being sent away. As for the rest, he didn't need to explain it too clearly. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. Maybe the 2 of you have misunderstood. The Martial Arts Bureau wanted to do this with me and let Wang Ren receive the punishment he deserved. However, the Martial Arts Bureau didn't seem to support it and sent her away. But no matter what, I have made up my mind to do this. As for the 2 of you, I understand your difficulties. I can't be too selfish and only care about myself. I can't be too selfish and think about dragging you into this. Unknowingly, Chen Guang, a 3rd-year student, didn't behave like a student in front of Old Man Han, a deputy dean, and Guoming, a former director, and now an executive of a listed company. Instead, he behaved like a peer. When the 2 heard this, they were silent for a long time. They looked at Chen Guang with some pain, as if they were thanking him for being honest with them. However, they also seemed to be regretting that they might have missed another good opportunity to take down Wang Ren and Su Lijing. Since they had already said this much, there was no point for Chen Guang to continue staying here. So he didn't stay any longer and got up to leave. Not long after he left the tea house, Wu Shan called again. Xiao Qin, what did you say to Su Lijing? Today, after my meeting, he came to the entrance of the courtyard to invite me for tea. His words were strange. On the other end of the line, Wu Shan was extremely puzzled. He keeps saying that I'm not honest, and that I'm guarding a mountain of gold and silver. I'm really confused by him. Have you guys settled the matter? More or less, half of it has been settled. Chen Guang didn't quite understand what had happened either. Haven't the punishments been revoked? What else do you want? Wu Shan's tone was somewhat dissatisfied. He wanted to use his words to lecture Chen Guang again, but even Wu Tong wouldn't listen to him. Chen Guang was at most his junior, so it was even more impossible for him to listen to him. However, because Chen Guang wasn't that close to him, he couldn't contradict him like Wu Tong did. He only took a deep breath. Uncle Wu, it's not that I want anything else, it's that justice needs to be done. Listen to me tell you 3 things. If you still insist that I should stop after listening, then I'll listen to you. Since you're Sister Wu Tong's father, I'll listen to you. After organizing his words in his mind, Chen Guang told Wu Shan about the 3 important things. They were about Ding Lu, the nurse, and the boy who was beaten into a vegetative state. As for the others, whether it was corrupting teachers and students, embezzling public funds, or even using his authority to steal meat from students, or using underhanded means to expel Guoming from the academy, they were all minor details. Wang Ren's actions were only unforgivable. Uncle Wu, everything I said is the truth. If there's even one thing that isn't true, I won't pursue it. Of course, from my personal standpoint, I'm just meddling in other people's business. But since I know about it, I can't just ignore it. To be honest, this kind of thing should be handled by someone with your position. However, I understand your difficulties, so I won't ask for your help. I only ask that you don't stop me. As Chen Guang spoke, he tightly grasped the heavenly Holy Grail in his hand. He was waiting for Wu Shan's answer. He really didn't want to be a saint, but Wang Ren appeared in front of him again and again. It was as if something was testing his character. He couldn't help but ask in his heart, Luli, are you testing my sense of justice? Is it true that only people with a righteous heart are qualified to become the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail? Don't think like that. The heavenly Holy Grail isn't that great. Unexpectedly, just as this thought came to his mind, Wu Shan was still silent, but Luli was now complaining in his heart. F***CK. Can you give me some hints before you come out next time? Can you not scare me? Just like when you receive a message. It's not impossible. I can't be bothered. Fine, I'm afraid that you'll be stubborn. I just want to tell you to do whatever you want to do. Don't use me and the Holy Grail as a cover. Of course, things like temperament were indeed important, but he had only seen the spirit of heaven now. How was this relevant? There was still a difference of 108,000 miles. In short, the way you conduct yourself now can be summed up in one word. Just be a coward. Ha! Coward. Follow your heart. Follow your heart. In any case, do whatever you want to do. Don't leave any regrets in your heart. Let me put it this way. People who are always afraid of the slightest thing will sooner or later die on the path of the 3,000 worlds. Luli said very casually. Can you not talk about something as terrifying as death like it's a cabbage? Tell me secretly, how many redeemers have died before me? Luli chuckled. Not a single one. Because, you're the first. Just like what you guys always say when you do experiments, you're a lab rat. You're the first user of one of the 10 great artifacts of the Endless God Realm, the Heavenly Holy Grail. Isn't it very cool to think of it this way? Very proud. Frankly speaking, after you've passed the 3,000 worlds, other than saving me, what else will happen? I'm also very confused. Are you happy? Do you like this feeling of surprise when life is full of uncertainty? F***CK your sister. Chen Guang realized that ever since he boarded this pirate ship, his life had already collapsed by half. Now that he knew that he was a lab rat, it was equivalent to collapsing by another 25%. I really do have a good sister. But she's a dear, are you really interested? Let this lady introduce you to her. Luli chuckled. I'm not interested in big-breasted girls. You've been so mysterious lately, what exactly have you been busy with? I'm a little flustered. Chen Guang recalled Luli's busy look when the pencil statue was erected. If she didn't say something, he really couldn't feel at ease. I've already said that I have a big plan, don't worry about it. Anyway, you won't die for a while. F***CK. What do you mean, won't die for a while? Don't be like this. You always have to make big news, this big brother is very tired of being a redeemer, okay? I can't be bothered with you, dog-biting Lu Dongbin, you don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Luli had always been impatient when talking to Chen Guang. She ran away after a few sentences, causing Chen Guang to grit his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. On the other side, Wu Shan finally made a decision. He took a deep breath and said heavily, to be honest, before you mentioned this to me, I didn't think that things would be this bad. Su Lijing is indeed a little too much. Then Uncle Wu, do you understand now? What do you think I should do? Chen Guang didn't want to argue with him anymore, so he asked straightforwardly. Chapter 395. Wu Shan pondered for a few seconds. If you can gather enough evidence and convince me, I'll personally contact the procuratorate for you. If it's just you, the procuratorate won't accept it. Wu Shan said, although there may be a lot of hidden dangers, I can still handle it. But I won't let Wu Tong come back for a while. I don't want her to be involved in this matter, so don't talk to her. Chen Guang was overjoyed. Okay. Then, thank you for your understanding. After hanging up the phone, Wu Shan leaned against the leather chair and closed his eyes for a long time. He then picked up the phone and dialed a number to briefly report his decision. Not long after, the other side replied with one word, approved. Wu Shan let out a long sigh of relief and his eyes gradually became firm. His statement just now basically meant that Wu Shan was indeed going to go against Su Lijing. Perhaps he wasn't as righteous as he was before Chen Guang, but he still couldn't make up his mind to make enemies for no reason. After all, it's meaningless for him to kill all his enemies in one fell swoop. After all, with his identity and status, he couldn't do things as willful as Chen Guang. His every move had a lot of implications. But if Chen Guang had enough evidence, why not take this opportunity to get rid of Su Lijing? Su Lijing was a scholar who had turned to politics from the academic world. He and Wu Shan were not on the same mountain, and they had been competing against each other for a long time. Hidden under the surface was an everlasting undercurrent. Wu Shan felt that it was time to establish his power. Before the next election, he could take down Su Lijing to establish his power and improve his own status. Offending one group of people would naturally bring him closer to another group of people. He didn't need to explain these things to Chen Guang. After receiving Wu Shan's permission, Chen Guang immediately turned around and returned to the tea house. He briefly talked to Wu Shan and Guoming about his phone conversation with Wu Shan. Old Han and Guoming were worried, but in the blink of an eye, there was light at the end of the tunnel. Therefore, the three of them decided to split into 3 groups. Guoming set off to Denghai to contact the young nurse who was the victim. Old Man Han, on the other hand, made a trip in his private capacity and paid a visit to the family who lost their son. Chen Guang, on the other hand, was preparing to head to Ding Lu's hometown in the southeast province with Hua Ling. Once he decided to do it, he had to act at lightning speed. It caught Su Lijing off guard. When Chen Guang and Hua Ling arrived at Zhongsha City in southeast province, it was already the afternoon of the next day. They were so busy that Hua Ling did not even have time to move. That morning, Hua Ling was still groggy from last night's alcohol, so she dragged Chen Guang to the Phaeton. Shuo Jingxi had wanted to come as well, but she really couldn't leave the laboratory. Chen Guang also didn't suggest that she move. It wouldn't be good if Su Lijing's spies in the academy noticed anything unusual. I say, you 3 big sisters are too much. I won't say anything about getting drunk once. When I first arrived at the laboratory, I thought that I had entered womanland, but now I realize that the 3 of you are all drunkards. And his alcohol tolerance was especially bad. This is not womanland, this is wine fairy grove. Chen Guang couldn't help but complain as he dragged Hua Ling, who had vomited so much that she could barely take care of herself, out of the car. Hua Ling put one hand on the telephone pole. Can you blame me? The ups and downs of life come too fast. Normal people can't stand it, right? Do you think everyone is as insensitive as you? The 2 of them rested for a while in Zhongsha City in southeast province, and then continued to Yanting County. Ding Lu's hometown was located in a rather remote mountain village in Yanting County. Unexpectedly, the highway from Zhongsha City to Yanting County was only half built. After getting off the highway, they turned into a provincial road. Now they were in trouble. Who would have thought that this provincial road could actually change Chen Guang's understanding of bad roads? Even the god of racing had to kneel on the ground and sing surrender when encountering this kind of muddy road. At this moment, Chen Guang only hated that he didn't buy a Wrangler SUV. Although the Phaeton was good, it didn't have a lot of territory. Hua Ling, on the other hand, was calm. After the alcohol gradually dissipated, she became quite talkative. She pulled Chen Guang and bragged about all kinds of interesting things she had seen and heard in northeast China. When she was happy, she even sang a song. To be honest, Sister Hua Ling, your singing is no better than Deputy Director Han's. Chen Guang almost broke down because of Hua Ling. Hua Ling asked curiously, when have you ever heard Deputy Director Han sing? Forget it. I shouldn't have mentioned this to you. Chen Guang quietly turned on the car's stereo and played a classic song. He turned the volume up and managed to calm Hua Ling's broken voice. They had originally planned to drive to Yanting County before tonight, but because of the terrible road conditions, they finally arrived at Lingshan County, which was adjacent to Yanting County, when the sky was completely dark. It was about 40 kilometers away from their destination. The two discussed for a while and decided not to leave. They would continue their journey tomorrow morning and rush there through the night. On one hand, Chen Guang was too tired. On the other hand, Ding Lu's family was probably already asleep. There was no need to fight for half a day's time. The two had dinner together. When they checked into the hotel early, it was almost 8:30 at night. Hua Ling put one hand on the door of her room and deliberately put on a flirtatious look. She winked at Chen Guang. Little brother, I've been thinking about it. I think the Passat is not bad. It can barely be considered a BMW 3. Why don't you give me a chance to cry in the BMW? Look at this long night. It's not easy for the two of us to get together and come out for a walk. How can you let me sleep alone at night? As she said that, she proudly raised her eyebrows and licked her lips. They were quite familiar with each other now. Chen Guang was already quite familiar with her straightforward personality. He turned to look at her. I calculated with my fingers and found out that Sister Hua Ling's shoulders are wider than mine. Little Ku, I like the cute type. I really can't fall in love with you with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Bah. Tell me honestly, are you interested in Teacher Zhua? Hua Ling saw that her flirting didn't work and revealed her foxtail. It turned out that Zhong Yuehua and Hua Ling had long felt that Chen Guang and Zhua Jingxi were secretly flirting with each other. They thought that the two of them had an unusual teacher-student relationship. A woman's gossipy nature had awakened. Hua Ling couldn't help but want to test the waters while they were going out together. Chen Guang was shocked. How did you know? Damn. It's true. Hua Ling was also shocked. Damn, I've been tricked. I'm too lazy to talk to you. I'm going out for a walk. There's nothing going on between me and Teacher Zhua. Chen Guang turned and ran away. He couldn't stand the thick eyebrows, big eyes, and big waist of his senior sister's eyes that were burning with the spirit of gossip. Hey, where are you going? Hua Ling said anxiously at the door. Chen Guang waved his hand. I remember an acquaintance from Lingshan County. It's rare for me to come here, so I'm going to meet her. He really wasn't looking for an excuse. Fan Lingshan's family lived in Lingshan County. After confirming that he couldn't reach Yanting County tonight, he made up his mind to visit that family while he was here. Ever since the kidney transplant surgery, he hadn't contacted Fan Lingshan's family for more than a month. He didn't know how the aunt who donated the kidney was doing. He couldn't say that he didn't know how to be grateful after giving money to others. Money was just a worldly possession, and it couldn't compare to 1/10,000th of the kindness of a kidney donation. When the call went through, Fan Lingshan's voice on the other end sounded like she was crying. The fruit supplement bag that Chen Guang was holding fell to the ground with a thud. That aunt had just passed away. Chapter 396. After hanging up the phone, Fan Lingshan's sobbing voice still echoed in his ears. He really didn't expect that the auntie would be gone forever after not seeing her for a month. He wasn't that sad. After all, he had only met that auntie a few times and didn't even speak much to her. In order to get that auntie to donate her organs, Chen Guang even offered a sky-high price and gave her all the benefits he deserved. He didn't owe her anything. But now that he knew that she had really passed away, Chen Guang only felt extremely disappointed. Compared to many people, the first half of his life wasn't that lucky. He was a second-generation rich kid, but his family suddenly went bankrupt and his mother fell seriously ill. But he was even luckier. At the most difficult time of his life, Luli descended from the sky with the heavenly Holy Grail. Although the divine emperor was very deceitful, he was still helping him while tricking him. In just 2 months, he had already turned over a new leaf. So compared to Fan Lingshan, his luck couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. The greatest pain in the world was when a child wanted to take care of himself but his parents didn't. He had gone through all kinds of difficulties and dangers to save his mother's life in the end. But Fan Lingshan's mother's illness was different. Modern medicine hadn't reached the point where it was possible to replace a person's head, so there was no cure. He casually threw the fruits and supplements to the beggars by the roadside. He then bought a flower basket and wrapped a thick stack of cash in plain paper. Then, Chen Guang jogged back to the hotel. Before he left, he called Hua Ling and told her that he didn't know when he would be back at night. He told her to be careful and not to open the door easily. Then, Chen Guang started the car and headed straight for Three Saints Town, which was about 5 kilometers away from Lingshan County. Fan Lingshan's mother's mourning hall was placed on the main street of the town. It could be seen about 200 to 300 meters away. Fan Lingshan knelt cross-legged in the mourning hall with her head lowered. She gripped her phone tightly and sobbed from time to time. Her originally delicate and pretty face looked especially miserable because her eyes were red from crying. People kept talking in her ears. Fan Lingshan's eyes were a little numb, confused, and at a loss of what to do. In these 3 days, she had seen too many things that were beyond her knowledge. 3 days ago, after struggling for a long time, his mother finally ended her painful life. Fan Lingshan would always remember the words she said to her as she clutched her hand tightly before she died. No matter what. No matter what others said. Money, you can't let go. He couldn't let go of a single cent. Even if you really want to help a relative in the future, at the very least, you can't say anything before you graduate from university. All kinds of aunties had been whispering in Fan Lingshan's father's ears for a long time, and this behavior had completely reached its peak in the past 3 days. Finally, Fan Lingshan's father couldn't sit still anymore. He was persuaded. He felt that everyone was a family, and they should help each other when they were in trouble. He had completely forgotten that when Fan Lingshan's mother was terminally ill, these relatives who spoke better than they sang at this time all hid far away. It wasn't until the matter of the kidney donation was completely settled that these relatives appeared one after another from inexplicable places, looking as if they were treating her well. Xiao Shan, listen to Dad, we can't be ungrateful people. There's so much money, you can't spend it all by yourself. You should take it out and share it with everyone. We're a family, we can't be too selfish. Fan Lingshan was still holding her phone tightly, looking at her father with a dull face. Dad, ungrateful, When Mom was sick, they didn't really help us at all. Mom barely had enough money for the surgery. Didn't you use all the things in the family to get a loan? What did they help us with? Fan Lingshan's father was stunned. It seemed like this was really the case. Xiao Shan, what nonsense are you talking about? Our Fan family doesn't have people like you. Let me tell you, this is illegal. A family's money should be shared among the family. That's right. We can go to court to sue you. You'll go to jail. If you don't settle this matter today, don't even think about going to university. Finally, it seemed like someone couldn't sit still anymore. He slammed the table and stood up. This person's outburst was like the fuse of firecrackers. For a moment, the large morning hall suddenly became noisy. More and more people slammed the table and stood up, pouncing on Fan Lingshan. It was as if Fan Lingshan had really done something that angered the heavens and the people. These relatives that she was familiar with in the past had become demons, ghosts, and man-eating beasts. One by one, they pounced on her, pulling at her clothes and tearing at her hair. She didn't quite understand whether what these people said was true or not. Her mother had left her inheritance, written a will, and her father had also signed it. Why did she have to share it with these relatives that she basically didn't interact with? Am I really breaking the law? It wasn't clear who made the first move, but Fan Lingshan's hair was pulled from behind, and she was thrown to the ground. For a moment, the morning hall was in chaos. Under the illumination of the night lights, faint figures were cast on the white curtain outside the morning hall. Chen Guang, who had just stopped his car, thought that he had walked into the underworld. What was going on? He couldn't help but be angry. Someone came to the morning hall to cause trouble. He had long heard that people were threatened and extorted by gangsters when they were organizing morning halls, but he didn't expect to see it in person today. It was said that the dead were the most important. Were these people looking for death? My arm is starting to ache. My hands are going to be stained with blood. He slammed the car door and rushed over with the flower basket in one hand. He didn't really see what was going on inside, but he shouted, "Everyone, stop." Chen Guang's strong voice suppressed the noisy crowd. Many people who were desperately trying to get in shuddered and turned to look at him blankly. Who is this person? Isn't this that rich man who gave Lingshan's mother 4 million? There were still people who remembered Chen Guang, and the eyes of these quick-witted people lit up. Could it be that this rich man also heard that Lingshan's mother had passed away and rushed over to give her money because of her kindness? Indeed, someone in the crowd whispered, "This young man is very generous." Everyone, stop making a fuss. The last time he came to the ward, he gave her 100,000 yuan. This was indeed effective. Immediately, a person who looked like an elder in the crowd tidied up his messy clothes and walked forward with a smile. "This is Mr. Chin. Hello. I've heard a lot about you. I'm Lingshan's uncle." As soon as this person finished speaking, another person rushed over and pushed this uncle away. He reached out to grab Chen Guang's hand. "Hello, Mr. Chin. I'm Lingshan's uncle, Fan Jitong." The people who were originally surrounding Fan Lingshan suddenly changed their target and pounced on Chen Guang. Although Fan Lingshan had more money on her, she was still here. If they couldn't reach a deal today, they could continue another day. However, this person was different. He might leave after giving the money, and there wouldn't be many opportunities to talk to him in the future. The last time he just visited the ward, he gave her 100,000 yuan. Now that she was dead, he would have to give her at least 200,000 yuan, right? Chen Guang was at a loss. Why was the situation different from what he had imagined? What happened just now? Where's Fan Lingshan? Chen Guang asked. Before anyone could answer, he saw Fan Lingshan gritting her teeth as she stood up from the ground. Her hair was unkempt and her clothes were tattered. There were a few bloody scratches on her face, and she looked extremely pathetic. Chapter 397. Chen Guang ignored the people who rushed over and furrowed his brows. "Excuse me, please." The identity of being rich was indeed useful. Seeing that Chen Guang wasn't too happy, the Fan family's relatives thought it was because there were too many people crowding around and annoying the rich man, so they quickly moved aside. Chen Guang pushed aside the people in front of him and quickly walked over to Fan Lingshan's side. As he passed by Fan Lingshan's father, he acutely realized that the father didn't dare to look him in the eye. Something was wrong. He walked directly in front of the pitiful girl and smiled at her. Then he reached out to help her straighten out her torn clothes. "Didn't I already say that if there's anything, you have to tell me? I'm your brother, and I have to help you." In reality, Chen Guang was only 2 years older than Fan Lingshan, but Fan Lingshan raised her head and stared at him. She didn't know why, but even though she hadn't spoken much to this brother before, after seeing his smile, this girl's heart that was about to shatter gradually glued back together. Just by standing next to him and listening to his gentle words, Fan Lingshan's heart gradually became a pillar of support. "Yes." She nodded heavily. Chen Guang patted her shoulder and looked at her awkward clothes. He didn't think too much about it and took off his t-shirt to cover her head. His loose t-shirt covered Fan Lingshan's body, and it looked a little comical. As for Chen Guang, he only had a single piece of clothing, and the moment he took it off, his muscles were exposed to the light. In an instant, his scholarly aura disappeared, and he looked like a rude and unreasonable person. "It doesn't really fit, so please forgive me." As Chen Guang spoke, he rearranged the Fan mother's memorial table that had fallen to the ground. He then picked up the fruit platter and the incense burner on the ground one by one and arranged them neatly. Finally, he put the flower basket he bought on the memorial table. He reached out and straightened the portrait that had been shaken askew. Then, Chen Guang bowed to the portrait 3 times and said heavily, suddenly hearing this grievous news, "This junior Chen Guang is very pained. I hereby swear that from now on, Fan Lingshan is my, Chen Guang's, sister. I will protect her for a lifetime of happiness. I will not let her suffer in the slightest." From the moment he stood next to Fan Lingshan and took off his clothes for her to the moment he finished speaking, none of the Fan family relatives dared to come up and say anything. The indescribable aura that Chen Guang was forcibly suppressing completely enveloped this bizarre and dazzling morning hole. He understood that from the moment he entered the house until now, he hadn't seen a single relative on Mother Fan's side. They were all on Fan Lingshan's father's side. Although he didn't know the specific reason, it was clear from the noisy scene just now that these damned relatives of Fan Lingshan's father were forcing her to do something. All of the reasons could be summed up in one word: money. Dirty, despicable, and ugly. At first, the Fan family members didn't understand what was going on, but halfway through Chen Guang's words, they sensed that something was wrong. "We didn't bully Lingshan. That's right, it's so weird. In the face of money, even a coward could be a little more courageous." Chen Guang didn't pay attention to these people's words. Instead, his gaze focused and became extremely fierce. He shouted, "If this oath is violated, this table will be destroyed." As soon as he finished speaking, his hand rose and fell. His right hand fiercely slammed down, and the solid wood table in front of him shattered. After the clamor, the morning hall became deathly silent. These people clearly hadn't seen anyone smash such a large table with a single slap. Chen Guang's face was grave and stern, appearing especially callous. Then, he pulled Fan Lingshan outside. "If you have anything to say, let's talk outside. It seems like there's no way to have a proper conversation here." Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Chen Guang used his left hand to pull Fan Lingshan out of the morning hall step by step. No one dared to stop them, and no one dared to say a word. Why did he pull with his left hand? Because his right hand was in extreme pain. He thought it was a cypress table, but it turned out to be beech. He had been plotted against. The two of them walked out of the morning hall for a long time before Fan Lingshan finally burst into tears. The suppressed sadness in her chest could be heard. "Take me away from here. I don't want to stay here anymore," Fan Lingshan suddenly said. Chen Guang first turned to look at her, then glared at the restless people. The Fan family relatives who had planned to follow didn't dare to move. "All right." At that moment, Fan Lingshan's father quickly caught up. Chen Guang originally thought he wanted to keep the two of them, but unexpectedly, he gritted his teeth and said, "Mr. Chen, thank you. I know you're good to Lingshan. Take her away. There's a letter here. Her mother asked me to give it to her." When this weak man said these words, there was an inexplicable determination in his eyes. Fan Lingshan looked at her father rather perplexedly and reluctantly. Originally, she thought that if he insisted on keeping her, she might not leave. Fan Lingshan's father waved his hand fiercely. "Go. You'll understand once you read the letter. In a few years, if you miss me, come back to see me." Having said this, he turned and returned to the morning hall. The other Fan family relatives seemed to want to say something, but then they looked at the shirtless Chen Guang and thought of the broken table on the ground. In the end, no one dared to follow. Chen Guang drove leisurely back to the county seat while Fan Lingshan finished reading the concise and comprehensive letter. What does the letter say? Chen Guang felt that there was something wrong with her current state. Fan Lingshan tore up the letter, opened the car window, and scattered the shredded paper outside. She turned her head to look at Chen Guang. "Brother, I'm afraid I really won't have a family in the future." On the way, the two of them talked a lot. Chen Guang knew that it was no wonder the Fan family's relatives were so strange, even crazy. It turned out that when her mother married over, she brought her with her. In other words, she wasn't a biological daughter of the Fan family. After her mother passed away, she no longer had any blood relations with the Fan family. It seemed that because her mother gave birth to a daughter out of wedlock, she had a bad relationship with her parents. All these years, her mother had never returned to her parents' home, and usually never mentioned it to her. Perhaps the Fan family's relatives were afraid that sooner or later Fan Lingshan would find out about this, so they just wanted to get the money out as quickly as possible. If it wasn't for Chen Guang's timely appearance, perhaps the Fan family's plan really would have succeeded. To be honest, I'm not really good at comforting people. At a loss for words, Chen Guang felt that if he was in Su Tao's shoes, he would probably go insane if he found out that his father, who had raised him for nearly 2 decades, wasn't his biological father after his mother passed away. Fan Lingshan almost went crazy. She seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be complaining to Chen Guang about something. "They really never told me that my father..." As she spoke, she fell silent again. Chen Guang didn't say anything to interrupt her. This kind of thing could only rely on her own. After a long time, it wasn't until Chen Guang parked the car in the hotel parking lot that Fan Lingshan finally came back to life. "Actually, my mother wasn't such a stingy person. Maybe if these relatives had treated us better when she was sick, she wouldn't have said that to me before she passed away. I was even willing to give them 3 million. No, as long as they could keep the money for me to finish college, I could give them the rest." Fan Lingshan's tone revealed a sense of desolation. Chen Guang didn't quite agree with her point of view. "I think that a man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Such a big family, don't look at how much money you have. If everyone really came to take a bite, it might not be enough even if you sold yourself." Chen Guang had only seen similar things in the online news. He didn't expect to actually encounter it himself. The most unpredictable thing was the human heart. Originally, Chen Guang didn't make up his mind to take her away, but since Fan Lingshan really had nothing to do with that family, naturally there was no problem. Unexpectedly, she was even more determined. Not only did she want to leave the family, but she also didn't want to go to school. "I want to quit school." She said so. "Actually, my college entrance examination score was enough for Gokyo University, but they said that it would be too expensive to study in another province. Southeast Institute of Technology has more financial aid, so they insisted that I apply to Southeast Institute of Technology. I want to change places, change the environment, otherwise they will definitely come to me." She had really been too shocked today. Chen Guang pulled the handbrake with a creak. "I already said that I recognize you as my sister. With me around, they can't do anything to you. But you also have to do your own things. This is really too troublesome for you." Chen Guang thought for a moment. "What troublesome? It's not like you don't know that going to university is a big deal. Anyway, I have nothing to do, so I just want to get a diploma. In short, you are still in a rush to quit school. If you can, why don't you try to apply for a suspension? It's not easy to get into a university. Look at me, I'm already so rich, but I'm still studying in school. It's a diploma." Although he didn't want to admit it, Chen Guang felt that it was quite good to be a brother. Since he became very rich, he had a completely dispensable attitude towards a bachelor's degree. But when he put on the mentality of a brother to teach others, he felt justified. In the end, Fan Lingshan listened to Chen Guang's suggestion and decided to apply for a leave of absence when school reopens. As for now, Chen Guang decided to bring her along with him and send her back to her hometown after he returned to Dechuan province. In fact, he wanted to go back to his hometown, but his father firmly disagreed. "This time, I brought back a cheap daughter for you. You can't not let me go back, right?" Hua Ling felt that she was about to collapse. She slept in the middle of the night, but was abruptly woken up from bed. Chen Guang, who said that he was going out to see an old friend, actually brought back a delicate girl. He was even bare-chested. "Although you are a little handsome and quite charming, young man, you don't seem to have a good private life, do you? How can you face Teacher Zhua, who flirts with you all day long?" As for the inheritance, Lingshan's parents had already signed on it. It was fair and legal. Now that Lingshan was an adult and had reached the age of 18, she had absolute control over her own assets. No matter how you look at it, it has nothing to do with you guys. Let's not talk about whether you guys are related to Lingshan by blood. Even if you guys are really her relatives, you don't have the right to say anything, do you? How can this person be so shameless to this extent? Of course, I'm just talking nonsense to you guys. You guys understand the reason and everything. But if you don't make a scene, how can you get money? This is reaping without sowing. You guys don't have any qualms about swallowing your niece's bones without spitting out the skin. Seeing that the fatty was about to speak again, Chen Guang turned his head and glared at him. "I don't care how much they promised you. If it was another time and place, I might be willing to use money to resolve this matter. After all, money isn't a problem to me. But now I'm not happy, and I don't want to spend money. So, you can wait to become famous. Come, let's take a picture." When Chen Guang finished speaking, he took out his phone and snapped a few photos of the crowd before him. "What are you doing? Give me the phone." The fatty roared, wanting to snatch the phone. Chen Guang raised his leg and kicked him in the chest, sending the fat man flying. Who the F***ck dares to touch me? I have hundreds of millions in assets, and dozens of people are lining up to take the blame for me. I don't go to jail for murder. Who dares to come up? Chen Guang roared. He didn't need to prepare a draft to brag. He really scared the Fan family's relatives. Seeing that they were all silent, Chen Guang found it funny. If only money was so useful. It would be a joke to use this to scare people like Su Lijing. But different people in different situations, they all believed it. Don't be afraid. We'll block the door. He can't leave if he doesn't hand her over. I don't believe he dares to drive over our heads. The eldest uncle saw that the situation was not good. They couldn't control the situation with so many people, and no one dared to make a move. He immediately thought of an idea. You guys take your time blocking the door. I'll say it again. Wait to become famous. Chen Guang turned around and returned to the hotel. The boss of the hotel was also someone with connections in Lingshan County. He had already called a dozen burly men to guard the entrance of the hall. The boss also helped Chen Guang take the blame. As the boss of Lingshan County, if something happened to his hotel guest, it must not happen in the hotel. It was a small matter if the hotel's reputation was ruined, but losing face was a big deal. When Chen Guang went upstairs, he was called by the boss who had rushed over after hearing the news. The two had a simple chat. He could find some big shots in Lingshan County to settle the matter, but Chen Guang told him not to be anxious. On the one hand, he owed such a big favor for no reason. On the other hand, he was unfamiliar with this place. After calling people, he still had to settle the matter with money. He was not willing. Chapter 399. Back in the room, Chen Guang turned on the hotel computer and began to write a joke. With the experience of writing Wang Ren's long article as a foundation, Master Guang, a veteran internet celebrity and a newly minted jokester, felt that it was a piece of cake. With thousands of words, he explained everything that had happened to Fan Lingshan from beginning to end. He also added some criticisms of the current society, such as what was wrong with the world, what was wrong with the society, and why human nature had become like this. Finally, he added a few freshly released photos. In the photo was Fan Lingshan's uncle, as well as the uniformed fatty's ferocious face as he tried to snatch the phone. The timing was perfect. It took him less than half an hour to finish writing this long article. He still had to thank the owner of the hotel. No matter how much the Fan family relatives and the uniformed fatty made a ruckus, they knew who the owner of the hotel was. In the end, they did not dare to force their way in. After the previous mindless post, the benevolent are not benevolent, the almighty Superman posted a new Weibo post. Now, the number of fans had slowly increased to more than 4.6 million. They immediately sent the news to him. Everyone was looking forward to this guy's new video. He knew how to sharpen a pencil, play the piano, race cars, and play the Dota. Not just in the general sense, but he was so strong that no one dared to challenge him. Many people were wondering what his next Weibo post would be, but they never expected it to be a long article. The title of the long article was, The Relatives of Friends of Friends of Friends of Friends. The last sentence of the long article said, At this very moment, my friend's friend's friend is being blocked by dozens of people in Lingshan County's Xinfeng Hotel. My mother passed away and couldn't mourn, so my father was kicked away by his relatives. I don't know how they reported the case. In short, my friend's friend became a kidnapper for no reason. What do you think? Other people's relatives are so scary. Frankly speaking, no one was very happy or satisfied that the almighty Superman had suddenly posted such a joke. An internet celebrity was about to become a public figure. What should we, the millions of fans, do? This kind of thing happened every day on the internet. Other public intellectuals would repost or write these long articles. Everyone would understand. After all, these people relied on this to make a living. But you're an almighty Superman, how could you do such a vulgar thing? Other than that, without verification, who would know if these things were true or false? Even in the comments, a guest of Xinfeng Hotel replied with a photo, which was taken from the window. It's true. However, there were still quite a number of people who felt that they were rational and smart. They would not be affected by such a low-end rhythm. They had the right to question the authenticity of this long article. The comments posted by the most intense fans could be summarized as follows: Brother Almighty has fallen. It's public knowledge. I've already unfollowed him. My fan has turned into a fan, and my fan has turned into a hater. Out of the 4.6 million fans, he lost a few thousand of them. Even a living person had its own disadvantages. If he decided to unfollow them, he might not be able to serve all of them well. However, Chen Guang did not comment on it. After all, he had a base of 4.6 million, so a few thousand was nothing. But no matter what, once this Weibo post was posted, even if its influence couldn't be compared to the previous videos, it still had a lot of influence on the internet. Fan Lingshan's cousin was bored from waiting. He sat down in the middle of the hotel entrance and took out his phone to browse Weibo. Fan Xiaoji, you're still playing with your phone at this time. The young man kicked his uncle. The cousin, Fan Xiaoji, chuckled. Aren't we just idling around? That Chen guy's car is there, and he can't leave anyway. Uncle, this is called preparing for a protracted war. Wouldn't it be boring sitting here all day? Uncle saw him acting like a hoodlum and did not say much. Instead, he turned to the uniformed fatty beside him and asked, Brother Lu, why don't we just arrest him? Although that Chen Guang kid is quite rich, this is our Lingshan district. Even a powerful dragon cannot suppress a snake in its own territory. Why should we be afraid of him? The uniformed fatty shook his head. 2 years ago, I could have arrested him directly. Now, I can't. The internet is too advanced now. If we don't kill him directly, we can't do anything that will give others something to use against us. Once it gets out on the internet, the consequences will be dire. It's a big risk for us to help you today. This fatty was obviously very knowledgeable, but he also had his own considerations. Although they had taken pictures of her, they didn't beat her up, nor did they really arrest her. Fan Lingshan was a member of the Fan family, so it was only right for them to keep her. If it got out, they could say that they were just enforcing the law and making a normal inquiry. At this moment, Fan Xiaoji suddenly stood up and looked at the two of them. His face was ashen. Uncle, Captain Lu, it seems, the matter has already gotten out on the internet. Ha! Captain Lu took Fan Xiaoji's phone. 5 seconds later, he cursed, D*MN. How did it happen so quickly? I have to contact the information department to cover this up. F***CK. I'm dead this time. Fan Xiaoji's face was bitter. One of the pictures that Chen Guang had taken was of Captain Lu, and the other was of him. It had not even been half an hour since that Chen guy said he wanted to make him famous, and now he was really famous. Wait, why are there so many comments on this Weibo? There are already tens of thousands of them. Captain Lu suddenly saw the number of comments and was shocked. His uncle did not know much about the internet, but seeing Fan Xiaoji and Captain Lu's pale faces, he knew that the situation was not good. This was posted by a super verified account. Many celebrities are his fans. Fan Xiaoji was also one of Superman's loyal fans on Weibo. He had been following him since the first video of him sharpening a pencil. How could he not know how powerful this person was? As expected, before Captain Lu could make the call, a call came in. It was from his boss. She scolded him harshly, spitting out a torrent of abuse at the slightest disagreement. Then, she told him to stay where he was. She had to stabilize the emotions of the Fan family. If something went wrong, everyone would be in trouble. After waiting for another 10 minutes, another large group of people came. This time, they were not accomplices of the Fan family's relatives. They were all legitimate public servants. This was called maintaining stability. After a while, the Fan family was escorted back dejectedly. This was called an illegal gathering. Fan Lingshan and Hualing were watching from the window of the other room. They were so excited that they jumped 3 feet high. Sister Hualing, why do you think this Superman posted this? Fan Lingshan was overjoyed. Hualing looked next door. Although she did not understand what was going on, she knew that it must have something to do with Qin Guang. Your brother has a lot of connections. Fan Lingshan was confused. That doesn't make sense. My classmates have been thinking about this person recently. They said that many people are searching for this Superman, but they can't find him. Does brother know him? Of course he knows him. Otherwise, why would he post on Weibo so quickly? As the two were chatting, Chen Guang pushed the door open and came in. He waved his hand. Let's go. Brother, you know Superman? Fan Lingshan asked as she carried her bag. Of course. We're in the same boat. Chen Guang laughed. Fan Lingshan and Hualing were shocked. They did not expect him to know him. Really? Of course. Hualing chuckled. Can you help me get an autograph from him? I'm a fan of his. Shaking his head, Chen Guang replied, I've asked him some time ago, and he said that his dream is to become a fan maniac. After thinking about it, I feel that it's best for you guys to stay away from him. That person's signature is filled with filth. The team from the east had grown. After nearly 2 hours, the 3 finally arrived at Ding Lu's hometown. It was Hetou Village, Yanting County, at the end of the mountain road. I heard that Hetou Village only has 3 or 4 students a year. There are even fewer students from key universities like Gokyo University. That's why Ding Lu's dropping out of school was a big deal in the village. It's a small place. If something happens to a family, it'll spread like wildfire in a day or 2. Hualing said. The 3 of them could not find a suitable place to park their car in the village. With no other choice, Chen Guang drove the car into the small courtyard of the village government and gave the guard 100 yuan. The guard patted his chest and accepted the job. Along the way, Fan Lingshan was stronger than expected. Although she would stare blankly in the direction of her hometown from time to time, she did not show any signs of sadness or loneliness in front of Chen Guang and Hualing. The 3 of them walked along the mountain road for about half an hour. Hualing pointed to the mountain in front of them. It's over there, Xiao Lu's home. Chen Guang looked up. A dilapidated tile-roofed house was located halfway up the mountain. The trees around the tile-roofed house were cut down, making the house look particularly lonely. Don't talk later. Let me do the talking, Hualing said. I was here when Xiao Lu was buried. Her parents knew me. Okay, Chen Guang said. Ding Lu's parents were very typical farmers. When Ding Lu entered university in her freshman year, her father went on a long trip with her. Before that incident, this family was considered a distinguished family in Hetou Village. Whenever people in the village talked about Ding Lu, they would give her a thumbs up. Perhaps the higher a person was, the harder they fell. Good news spread far and wide, but bad news spread far and wide. What happened to Ding Lu was a devastating blow to this family. However, when Hualing attended the funeral last time, she did not dare to tell the truth. She was afraid that the family would fight Wang Ren to the death. How could these people be a match for Wang Ren? Su Lijing could casually think of a way to put them beyond redemption. When they approached the tile-roofed house, they found that it was empty. The house had become extremely dilapidated in less than a year, and half of the walls had collapsed. The three of them asked a passerby where the Ding family had gone. The passerby said with disdain, the daughter of the Ding family was so disgraced. She seduced a teacher when she failed her exams. She moved away long ago. If it were me, I wouldn't have the face to stay in the village. Chen Guang was about to lose his temper, but Hualing stopped him. The cherry tree grew alone at the back of the yard. Its branches and leaves seemed to have been badly damaged by the naughty children. Every time it bore fruit, it was the time of the poor tree's downfall. The three of them stood under the tree, and they could almost smell the anger and dissatisfaction in their noses. The iron box had been corroded by the humidity underground. It might not be found in another 2 years. When they opened the iron box, a pungent smell came from inside. Inside was an old-fashioned phone with nuoku buttons, a pair of white underwear stained with blood and a few brown spots, and a letter. It was addressed to Hualing, Xiaoling. By the time you read this letter, I'll have been dead for a few years. I was scared by Wang Ren. I really didn't think it would be so serious to let someone look at my exam paper. On Saturday, when he asked me to talk to him, I should have realized something was wrong. He asked me to treat him to a meal to suppress the matter. I really thought it was just a meal. I'm ruined. I don't have the face to see Longji. It's my fault. I shouldn't have told Longji about this. I thought he would understand and forgive me. Actually, I should have been like other girls and said that I don't like you anymore. That way, maybe we can break up peacefully. I didn't expect this, not even in my dreams. No one understands me. Everyone is blaming me. I can't go back to school, and my family hates me. The world is so big, but I don't know where else I can go. I heard that people who commit suicide will become ghosts. I hope I can become a ghost too. That way, I can go find Wang Ren for revenge. But there are no ghosts in this world. I can't become a ghost. I understand that. Actually, I just feel that there's no meaning in living anymore. Xiaoling, I don't really want you to do anything for me. It was difficult, really difficult. Or perhaps it should be said that it was impossible. Vice Principal Su has talked to me. Many of the high-ranking officials are his students or friends. He also said that if I dare to continue to cause trouble, he will make my 2 brothers who are working outside die on the construction site. All I have to do is pay some money. That's too scary. Don't ruin your life because of me. If you do, I'll feel sorry for you. I just want to leave something behind, but I really don't know who to talk to about this. You're the only one left. I know this will cause a lot of trouble for you. With your personality, you'll feel terrible. Forgive me for being stubborn for the last time. I was wearing this underwear that night. It has my blood and Wang Ren's semen on it. I've been hiding it. There's a recording on my phone. It's also from that night. What if someone wants to deal with Wang Ren in the future? What if someone wants to deal with Su Lijing? If what I left behind can be of even the slightest bit of help. Ding Lu, final words. Hualing read the letter word by word with tears in her eyes. Ding Lu's will was written very calmly. It was filled with a despairing coldness. She used her own calm strokes to clearly write down how she walked down the path of suicide step by step. There was not a single exclamation mark. It was like she was talking about someone else's story, but every word made the hearts of the people who read and listened to the letter ache. Chen Guang gently closed the metal box. Looking at the two girls who were already in tears, he said softly, "We will avenge her." In Chen Guang's 21 years of life, he had never hated someone as much as he did now. Su Lijing's slightly flattering smile that day outside Wang Ren's room appeared in Chen Guang's mind again, but there was only one word that came to mind: cannibalism. Chapter 400. The battery of Nuoji's phone was completely broken. Fortunately, there was nothing wrong with the phone itself. The voice recorder should still be there. Chen Guang and the others returned to Wujing City the next afternoon and settled Fan Lingshan down. Xue Jingxi's apartment had completely collapsed. Although Hua Ling had moved out, there was now Fan Lingshan as a tenant. What made Chen Guang even more depressed was that he had originally planned to rent another room in this district to hide his sister. In the end, Xue Jingxi's maternal instincts were triggered by Fan Lingshan's misfortune. She refused no matter what and insisted that Fan Lingshan move into her house. Chen Guang did not plan to let anyone else get involved in what happened next. He had Wu Shan's protection. Whether or not he could bring down Su Lijing in one go, he had nothing to fear. But Xue Jingxi and the others could not. "What? You want me to go abroad?" Wang Ren, who was lying in the ward, looked at Su Lijing in front of him blankly. "I think something is wrong. You should leave the country as soon as possible." Su Lijing looked a little tired. "I've already arranged the plane ticket and passport for you. You can leave the day after tomorrow." "Auntie, help me persuade uncle. I don't want to go abroad." Wang Ren threw a tantrum on the bed. "I don't understand English at all. Why would I want to go abroad for no reason?" Of course, he did not want to leave. In the eyes of ordinary people, going abroad was a wonderful thing, but Wang Ren did not think so. Why would he want to go to an unfamiliar place? There was also a language barrier. In the country, in Sichuan province, everyone had to give face to Su Lijing, his nephew. He would be treated well wherever he went. Even if he did something wrong, there would be people to clean up after him. But once he went abroad, he did not know English and had no friends. Su Lijing's face was no longer useful. To him, it was no different from going to jail. Other than that, he did not do anything while lying on the bed. He could not let go of the fact that he had beaten up Chen Guang so badly. What kind of joke is this? I don't believe that Chen Guang is the descendant of some big shot in the military. Chen Guang's school record is clearly in the academy, and I've seen it a long time ago. His 3 generations had all lived in Lilai County in Great Chuan Province. How could he have any powerful background? In his opinion, Su Lijing's conjecture had no basis at all. Unfortunately, he was unable to convince Su Lijing. Wang Ren felt that his uncle was getting old and had become timid. "I've suffered such a huge loss and grievance, yet you don't want to stand up for me. Instead, you want to send me abroad. I absolutely won't agree. If you don't stand up for me, I have my own social connections now. I can only rely on myself." His buddies from back then had already made a name for themselves in the 5 capital underworld. Wang Ren knew that no matter how good Chen Guang was at fighting, there had to be a limit. So he decided to get more people to surround Chen Guang. After all, Chen Guang couldn't possibly overturn the heavens. "Xiao Ren, listen to your uncle. Listen to your uncle. No matter what, go abroad and hide for a while. You can come back when the situation is clear. We don't really want you to leave. No one can bear to part with you. But we don't know the attitude of the higher-ups. I'm afraid." Wang Ren's aunt was, of course, his biological mother. Although everyone knew this, Su Lijing didn't allow him to change the way he addressed her for so many years, so he kept calling her that. Wang Ren rolled his eyes. What attitude from the higher-ups? Uncle, who else can there be? Moreover, I didn't do anything extraordinary. The money I took is not even 1% of what most people get. I just fooled around with a few women. What's the big deal? Su Lijing waved his hand impatiently. If the matter doesn't get out, of course it's nothing. But the situation outside is a bit tense. Recently, my eyelids have been twitching. It's better to be safe than sorry. If the things you did get out and people make a fuss about it, I'll be in trouble too. Wang Ren still did not believe him. Don't joke around. Uncle, you have to think about your own status. Who dares to mess with you? I don't believe it anyway. You see, I've been injured for the past few days. How can I move around now? What if I become disabled? All right. I won't say any more. Even if you have to be carried on a stretcher the day after tomorrow, you have to be carried on the plane. Su Lijing slammed the table. Uncle, it's not that I want to talk back to you. It's just that I really can't move around now. If I move my body slightly, my spine will hurt like a knife. The doctor said that my spine is cracked. You can't just watch me be a vegetable for the rest of my life, right? Wang Ren looked at Su Lijing. Yes, it's my fault. I deserve it. Who asked me to become someone else's son? I can't cause trouble for you. All right, I got it. I'll go, okay. As he spoke, the loneliness in Wang Ren's voice became stronger. His face also showed a trace of desolation. This was a tried and tested trick. As expected, Auntie's heart immediately softened. She gripped Wang Ren's hand with extreme grievance, then turned to look at Su Lijing with a tormented expression. Attention, why don't we wait a few more days? It's fine. The injury on Xiao Ren's back is really too serious. You can't act recklessly. Seeing the mother and son echo each other's words, then looking at the bandage on Wang Ren's head, Su Lijing finally softened. All right. I have to go next week. I'm going to a meeting. Xiao Ren, I'm leaving too. Don't worry too much. It'll be fine after a while. Don't be fooled by your uncle's fierce look. In fact, he has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Originally, he didn't want me to say it. Actually, we've already found you a good investment company and let you be the vice president. You should read some books when you're free. When you come back from abroad, you can be the vice president. After waiting for about an hour, a bald man came to Wang Ren's room. Brother Wang, I've asked someone from the school. That kid came back yesterday. If you think it's suitable, I'll bring 8 or 9 of my best buddies to beat him up tonight. You can decide how you want to beat him up. Breaking his arms and legs is no problem. The people I've found are all capable. The man said with a smile. He didn't take Chen Guang seriously at all. Chao Guangtou, you're a good friend. You know how to stand up for your brother. Wang Ren's mood, which had sunk because of Su Lijing's attitude, gradually became excited again. Brother Wang, I don't like what you're saying. Isn't it all thanks to you that I, Chao Guangtou, am where I am today? The hardest thing in life is to provide help in times of need. Brother Wang, I'll remember your kindness for the rest of my life. Chao Guangtou rubbed his head and smiled like the Buddha. He was very clear about Wang Ren's background. He knew that no matter what happened outside, as long as he held on to Su Lijing's thigh, he would be able to form a relationship with Su Lijing. If you don't lose the child, you can't catch the wolf. If he helped Wang Ren settle this matter, their relationship would deepen. As long as Su Lijing didn't fall, he, Chao Guangtou, wouldn't fall. This gamble was worth it. Chen Guang left his car in the parking lot of the Digital City and took a taxi to the Huili Peak District on the East Second Ring Road. It was Wu Shan's home in Wujing City. After waiting in the district for about an hour, Wu Shan finally arrived around 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. It was time to talk openly. Chapter 401. The two did not waste any time. In Wu Shan's house, Chen Guang laid out Ding Lu's suicide note, underwear with semen stains, and the Nwoji mobile phone with its battery repaired. Chen Guang listened to Ding Lu's recording together with Wu Shan. The 30-minute recording was filled with indecent moans, miserable howls, and Ding Lu's anguished and desperate cries after the drug had worn off. Most of it was Wang Ren's extremely arrogant sarcasm. Ding Lu, you have to understand that I slept with you because I thought highly of you. If not for your beauty, I would have expelled you for cheating. Stop crying. Don't you find it annoying? Slap. It was the sound of a slap, followed by Ding Lu's scream. Let me tell you. If you annoy me, no matter how well you serve me, I will still kick you out of the school. Think about it carefully. Your family has put in so much effort to get you to study here. If you get expelled, will you be able to face your family? How can you be so insensible? It's not like you'll lose a piece of flesh if you sleep with me. There are so many women in the school who want to climb into my bed, but they don't even have a chance. You're lucky, you know. Ha, what a joke. You want to sue me? Go ahead, go ahead. Do you think I've never been sued before? It doesn't matter if I tell you. There are at least a row of people who have sued me and want to sue me. But so what? I'm still sitting here, riding on top of you. No one can do anything to me. I will count to 3. If you continue to cry, I will call 7 or 8 people to come and have sex with you. Even if you die in bed, tomorrow's news will only be, female student addicted to drugs died in a hotel after overdosing. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? After a moment of silence, the man's crazy growl and the woman's painful moans were heard again. Bang! After listening, Wu Shan slammed the table. Shameful. Hateful. Hateful. This is simply appalling. Chen Guang silently put away his phone. Uncle Wu, do you think this is everything? What else? Chen Guang narrowed his eyes. There are 2 more videos. Next, he used his mobile phone to play the 2 videos provided by Guoming. Perhaps the video about the nurse would hurt the privacy of the person involved, but it couldn't be helped. After watching these 2 videos, Wu Shan was silent for a long time. Unexpectedly, Chen Guang said, "It's not over yet. In fact, if it were just these things, I would have only wanted to deal with Wang Ren." However, the victim, Ding Lu, had called her friend before she died. She told me that Su Lijing's threat had made her retreat. Su Lijing used the lives of Ding Lu's family members to threaten her to keep the secret to herself. Wu Shan's pupils shrank. Is that so? Where's the evidence? Chen Guang shook his head. There's no evidence, but I don't think there's anything to doubt about this, right? If not for Su Lijing's protection, how could Wang Ren be so arrogant? I talked to Su Lijing at the hospital before. Do you know what he meant? He didn't have the slightest hint of repentance. He kept saying that he would reflect on himself, blame himself, and reflect on his mistakes. But Uncle Wu, think about it. It was 2 lives. A girl's entire life. Destroyed by Wang Ren's hands, and this is only what we know and see. God knows how much more evil is hidden beneath the surface. How could he treat this so casually? This is the new China. Not the old society. What right does a government official have to ride roughshod over the nobodies? Just because he's a government official. Just because he has power and influence, he can do whatever he wants. Why? The more Chen Guang spoke, the more agitated he became. He even subconsciously slammed the table with his hands. Wu Shan, who was sitting opposite him, couldn't help but feel a little awkward. You can't say that. Chen Guang realized that he had gone overboard. Su Lijing and Wu Shan, who was sitting opposite him, were both officials. He had accidentally scolded Su Lijing too. Putting aside the fact that Su Lijing wanted to help him and was a high-ranking official, from a personal point of view, Su Lijing was Wu Tong's father, and Wu Shan was his junior. I was too excited and didn't know what to say. Uncle Wu, please don't take it to heart. Chen Guang's words made Wu Shan even more speechless. It's fine. But I think you should control this matter on Wang Ren first. From what I know, Su Lijing doesn't have many problems in other aspects. I have more information than you do. Su Lijing isn't a greedy person. He's only interested in fame. Perhaps he's also quite diligent in his studies. He's someone who values both knowledge and politics. Wang Ren is indeed his only shortcoming. But in other words, even if we know that Wang Ren wouldn't have been able to do such a crazy thing without him, it's still Wang Ren's fault. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to use this as an excuse to bring down Su Lijing. Chen Guang took out a few more items. They were the substantial evidence he had obtained from the various experimental equipment sales companies. Even with this, we can't touch Su Lijing. Wu Shan looked at it first, then shook his head. This is all Wang Ren's doing. It has nothing to do with Su Lijing. Isn't this enough? Isn't this clearly corruption? Su Lijing is the deputy of Gokyo University. Not to mention his connections all over the world, just from his personal status and the contributions he has made, we can't touch him just because of a conjecture. Even if Wang Ren is sentenced to 10 years, 20 years, or even a life sentence, even if the whole world knows that Wang Ren's nephew is his biological son, he hasn't done anything from the beginning to the end, right? Wu Shan said slowly. Chen Guang didn't want to talk for a long time. I have 2 questions. First, why can't Wang Ren be sentenced to death? Second, even if I send Wang Ren to prison, I can only watch Su Lijing sit in that position, manage his connections, and let Wang Ren change from a life sentence to a life sentence, and a life sentence to 10 years? 10 years to 5 years. After a year or 2, he'll be free and unfettered again. As the head of the political and legal system in Dachuan province, Wu Shan felt a little embarrassed by Chen Guang's words. What nonsense are you talking about? How can the law be taken lightly? Aren't you slapping my face? Unexpectedly, this time Chen Guang didn't give Wu Shan any face. He just smiled bitterly and shook his head. Uncle Wu, I've seen a murderer come out after a year and a half. It's true. Wu Shan's face stiffened. He subconsciously wanted to refute him, but he couldn't believe what Chen Guang was looking at him. After a while, he pondered for a long time and said heavily, actually, there's a way. Chen Guang's eyes lit up. What do you mean? There are 2 ideas. First, from the start of the public prosecution, I'll push it from behind. That way, once Su Lijing realizes that I'm involved, he won't fight back too strongly. Anyway, Wang Ren's crime doesn't warrant the death penalty. To him, as long as he doesn't die, it means he'll be fine. Second, from the start, I'll hide behind the scenes and do nothing. Even if Su Lijing communicates with me, I'll disassociate myself. In that case, he'll try to protect Wang Ren. As long as he makes a move, he'll give himself away. This is the only way to drag Su Lijing into this mess. When Chen Guang heard this, his eyes lit up. I understand. The first method can easily send Wang Ren to prison, but the second method will be met with all kinds of resistance, right? Wu Shan nodded. That's right. It depends on whether you can withstand Su Lijing's pressure and get the public prosecution out without my help. As long as you can hold on until the public prosecution is held, I can make my move at the most crucial moment. Wu Shan gritted his teeth. But it's very difficult. Although I don't want to admit it, it's the truth. Su Lijing has been operating in Dechuan for many years and has deep roots. It's very difficult to stir up a storm under his feet. You have to be mentally prepared. It's fine. If I didn't have the courage, I wouldn't have done this. Chen Guang smiled. Good. I'll wait for your good news. I, Wu Shan, never make promises easily, but I promise you right now that I won't let you down. Wu Shan's words were as heavy as 1,000 caddies. After leaving Wu Shan's house, Chen Guang's bag was filled with a lot of evidence. Next, he had to rely on himself. When he returned to Computer City, he drove his car out and found a hotel to stay in. He didn't go back to school. Instead, he called Chua Jingxi and said that he had a lot of things to do. He asked her to help take care of Fan Lingshan. Originally, he was counting on Wu Shan to help pull some strings and then launch a public prosecution through the prosecutor's office. Now, he suddenly changed his mind. He had to rely on himself. Chen Guang was at a loss, but he wasn't discouraged. Ideas could always be thought of by others. He didn't know what method Su Lijing would use to create obstacles, but it was necessary to distance himself as much as possible from everyone else. He locked himself in his room for the whole day, racking his brains, but he still couldn't find a clue. Old Master Guang's face was full of tears. Although the old man was very determined, it was still very stressful to do such a high-end thing all at once. Around 8:00 in the evening, he received even worse news. Through his own channels, Wu Shan quietly found out that Wang Ren's passport had been processed and that he had even bought a direct flight ticket for next week. If he couldn't start the public prosecution process before Wang Ren got on the plane, he could only watch him fly away. God knows when he would come back. If he waited for a year or two, who knows if Wu Shan would still be in Dechuan province by then. Once Wu Shan left, even if he really did start a public prosecution, it would probably end in nothing. Chen Guang fiercely drank a mouthful of strong tea, expressing the old man's determination to kill the enemy, but he didn't know where to start. Just when he was having a headache, he suddenly received a pleasant surprise call. It was from Lu Fei. Chen Guang slapped his forehead hard. I'm also stupid. If I don't understand these things, I can find someone more powerful to ask. Chapter 402. Learning and practicing from time to time. Among 3 people, there must be a teacher. Wu Tong was sent away, and Chen Guang did not want to drag her into this, but there was still Lu Fei. There was no need to drag Lu Fei into this matter. There was no need for that. But it was okay to just communicate with her and ask her for some advice. After all, she was a big shot who could lose 500 million a year. It was not difficult for her to give him some advice. Chen Guang immediately rushed out of the door and drove his Passat straight to the private clubhouse where Lu Fei and Zhong Bai and the others used it as a stronghold. When Chen Guang arrived, there was a small accident. When he parked his car too close to the BMW 5, a lad jumped out and pointed at Chen Guang. Why are you driving a lousy Passat away from my car? You'll have to pay for it if it scratches the paint. Chen Guang was speechless. I am at least 3 palms away from you, okay? Besides, I am buying 3 of your cars. The club security guard, who was helping to direct the parking, could not help but say, "Dude, this guy is driving a Phaeton. The cheapest one costs 800,000 to 900,000. The man was unhappy. He turned to the side and pointed at Chen Guang's car logo and shouted, "This is clearly a Passat." Chen Guang looked at the security guard happily. This young man was good and knew the business. "I admire you very much. What do you know? Keep a low profile, understand? This is called low-key luxury. Do you understand? I bought a Phaeton to keep a low profile. I deliberately removed the car logo and replaced it with a Passat to be more low-key. Why do you have to come out and ask for a beating? Is there a hole in your brain? You." Before he finished speaking, Chen Guang punched the tree next to the parking space. The thick trunk shook violently, and the small fruit and bird's nest on it fell and hit the roof of his BMW 5. "What do you want to say? Come on, speak louder and be brave. I will lend you some courage." Chen Guang looked at the BMW gentleman with a smile, but he didn't dare to let out another fart. Chen Guang glared at him, turned around, and walked inside. "I'm very busy, I don't have time to waste with you here." The security guard of the club was also shocked. How much strength did this guy have in his fist that could bend such a thick tree by more than a few inches? Today, Lu Fei had called him over for no other reason. It was just a group of people gathering together to chat, drink, chat, and sing for leisure. Anyway, they had nothing to do. This was how this group of people were. When they were busy, it was common for them to fly to 2 or 3 cities in a day. When they were free, they would also play around freely. Of course, Lu Fei had another purpose today, but it was not convenient to say it over the phone. Originally, she was worried that Chen Guang wouldn't be willing to come. She didn't expect him to readily agree as soon as she said it. After entering the door, he saw a large group of people sitting in the private room. Lu Fei was being pulled by someone, saying something impatiently. When she saw Chen Guang coming, she showed an overjoyed look. She quickly got up and leaned in front of him. She took his hand and said with a smile, "Brother Guang, I'm really sorry that I didn't go out to meet you." Chen Guang was a little embarrassed by her public intimacy. She was too enthusiastic and almost pressed half of her body on him. "What's going on?" Lu Fei put her mouth close to his ear again. "Oh, don't blame me for taking matters into my own hands if I say it. Can we say it all at once? You're making me feel very uncertain. Did you see that handsome man?" "I didn't see him. In my world, I have manually deleted all the men who are more handsome than me. In my heart, he is not as handsome as you. Did you see him? Your suitor?" "Yes. I'm almost annoyed to death by him, so I used you as a shield." Lu Fei whispered in his ear, her breath fragrant. Chen Guang glared. "Damn. If he can annoy you to death, he must be a rich second generation." The arrow in front of him is a 100 steps poplar arrow installed on a huangzhong bough. My shield is made of old yellow vine. I'm too low-end. I can't take it. The old man isn't feeling well. I'll leave first. How could Lu Fei let him go? She grabbed him tightly and pressed him down on the seat. As soon as Chen Guang sat down, Zhong Bai came up to greet him. He had a strange and meaningful look on his face. There were about 17 or 18 people here today. Chen Guang didn't know many of them, but when they saw that Lu Fei valued him so much, they all came over to greet him. Because of Chen Guang's previous request, Zhong Bai and the others wouldn't mention his identity as the god of racing in front of outsiders. But other than this, Chen Guang didn't seem to have the qualifications to talk to the people here on equal terms. Fortunately, he had no desires. When people came up to greet him, he just laughed and considered them acquaintances. He didn't ask for anything from these second generations. Lu Fei's party was said to be a gathering of young people to have fun, but the people who came here were also in groups of 2s and 3s. They were either chatting about things they were interested in, or talking about business collaborations with their families. In just a short time, there were already 2 business deals worth over 100 million that had been reached in private. Although Chen Guang was now a person with a net worth of 100 million, it wasn't impossible for him to use his connections to talk about business. But now that the money was in Liuli's hands, he wasn't even interested in talking about it. There were too many people at this time, so he couldn't talk to Lu Fei about his troubles. But Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry. He could ask Lu Fei in private when the party was over. But there was one thing that made him particularly unhappy. It was that the arrow that Lu Fei asked him to block was a little too fierce. Yu Mengchang, Chen Guang didn't know him, and he didn't know what his background was. But since he could make Lu Fei feel a headache and impatient, but there was no way to drive him away, it was obvious that this Mr. Yu's background wasn't that simple. From the moment Chen Guang sat down, this Mr. Yu looked at him with an unfriendly gaze. It was very well hidden, but under Chen Guang's preconceived vigilance, he was still able to see through it. He always asked about Chen Guang's affairs in a roundabout way, and Chen Guang also found it very difficult to deal with him. Why haven't I seen Brother Chen in this circle before? What does Brother Chen's family do? Food and beverage industry. What a coincidence. The Luoji chain restaurant is run by my cousin. Currently, it's doing well in the province. There are about 70 franchises, and he has some experience. We can meet up some other day to talk and exchange more information. By the way, the bosses of the big restaurants like Four Seas Pavilion, Xiaoyu Restaurant, and Hailing Pavilion often keep in touch with me. I heard that they plan to organize a Sichuan province's food and beverage industry conference. I wonder if anyone from your family will be attending. The restaurants that Yu Mengchang mentioned, Chen Guang had basically heard of them. They were really the giants of the food and beverage industry in Sichuan province, and they were all very pretentious. Unfortunately, the food and beverage industry that Chen Guang mentioned used to be a hotpot restaurant in a small county, and now it was bankrupt to the point where it couldn't be any more bankrupt. This conversation couldn't continue. This was only a part of his tragic encounter tonight. No matter how he tried to pull the topic, Yu Mengchang seemed to be really knowledgeable, and he could say everything clearly. However, although Yu Mengchang's words revealed a hint of arrogance, there was always a spring breeze-like smile on his face. This made Chen Guang not even have the right to flip the table and leave. They were all adults with status, and acting like a child would only make them look childish. This Yu Mengchang was amazing. Although he looked like he was only a few years older than Chen Guang, even when it came to things like snatching women, he was magnanimous and methodical. He was obviously sick of it, but Chen Guang just had to argue with him. No wonder Lu Fei couldn't do anything to him. Chen Guang ruthlessly pinched the butt of Lu Fei, who was pretending to be daydreaming, and secretly hated her for asking him to block such a powerful opponent without saying a word. Unexpectedly, under the pain, Lu Fei pouted coquettishly. She couldn't control her emotions for a moment, and her moan carried too much charm, causing everyone in the room to have goosebumps when they heard it. Damn you, taking advantage of me again. Lu Fei giggled and stretched out her finger to poke Chen Guang's forehead. Obviously, she also realized that using normal methods really couldn't make Yu Mengchang lose his mental balance and obediently retreat, so she could only use this unwise method. No matter how good Yu Mengchang's temper was, he felt sour and especially uncomfortable because of Lu Fei's actions. He didn't know how many years he had chased Lu Fei, but he didn't even hold her hand. What was the background of this kid called Chen Guang? He appeared out of nowhere, skipped countless stages, and directly became in this relationship with Lu Fei. How come I have never heard of such a person in Sichuan province before? Zhong Bai and the other 2 or 3 people sat together, seemingly chatting, but in reality, he had been staring at the subtle changes in Yu Mengchang. Yu Mengchang is really angry this time, Zhong Bai muttered softly. Let's go and help Brother Guang out. Sister Lu Fei didn't do it properly this time. Duanwen drank a mouthful of wine and said in an even softer voice than Zhong Bai's. Zhong Bai shook his head, not properly. I think it's very proper, it's very proper. What do you mean? Zhong Bai had an unfathomable look on his face. You guys don't understand, you really don't understand. When he said this, Zhong Bai's face looked like an enlightened monk who had seen through the world of mortals. Yu Mengchang sat on the sofa, feeling extremely uncomfortable all over. If it was his normal personality, he would directly ask, what is the relationship between Chen Guang and Lu Fei? But he really didn't dare to open his mouth. He had even been avoiding this topic, afraid that he would really hear from Lu Fei's mouth that Chen Guang was actually her boyfriend, and so on and so forth. Looking at this brother's bitter and unspeakable look, Chen Guang felt that he was extremely pitiful. He's as handsome as me, definitely richer than me, and more mature and steady than me. No matter how you look at it, he's the Prince Charming in the eyes of modern women. Unfortunately, it's useless. Talking about love isn't like treating someone to a meal. The internal and external conditions aren't the core elements. To put it bluntly, it's fate. Otherwise, we can just build a big data system and analyze the situation of all the men and women, find the most suitable couple, and skip the dating phase. You guys can just get married, it's definitely the most suitable. Who would believe that? Relationships, even people can't understand it. Chen Guang didn't know what was going on in his mind, but he subconsciously smiled bitterly and patted Yu Mengchang's shoulder. Yu Mengchang and Lu Fei were shocked by his actions. Brother, you're really honest. You can even sympathize with a love rival. Looking left and right, Chen Guang also realized that his actions were too pretentious. Damn, this is so awkward. I have to quickly say something or do something to divert these people's attention. Chapter 403. Oh right, brother you, this name of yours is quite cultured. During the Warring States period, there was who was it again? Chen Guang slapped his forehead and suddenly had an idea. He had indeed thought of a good idea to divert his attention. Of course, he knew that Lord Mengchang was just playing dumb. Yu Mengchang's mouth twitched and he drank a cup of tea heavily. Lord Mengchang. My family gave me this name because they hoped that I could inherit the tradition of the ancients and do business well. Chen Guang nodded. Impressive, impressive. I heard that the Mengchang family in Qi has 3,000 hangers-on. It became a popular story. Brother you, I can tell that you are a successful person with just one look. I'm so jealous. Yu Mengchang had forgotten about the psychological trauma caused by Lu Fei's coquettish grumbling. He seemed to have returned to his previous pretentious routine. He chuckled. Lord Mengchang does have 3,000 hangers-on, but they are all petty thieves. Those little tricks are not worth mentioning. We modern people can't do that when doing business. Very good, he was back to his pretentious routine. Chen Guang let out a long sigh of relief. Recently, because of the matter with Wang Ren and Su Lijing, he really did not want to provoke any more enemies. Yu Mengchang, this person, may be smiling and elegant now, but the more this kind of person was, the more it meant that he held a grudge in secret. Sigh, I won't come to such an occasion again, especially when there are outsiders around. I really feel uncomfortable all over. I'm not used to it. When is it going to end? The old man is here to ask for help. Why the heck is he using me as a shield? Forget it, let me think about it first. Activate auto recovery mode. 10 minutes later, Chen Guang could barely remember what he and Yu Mengchang talked about. Anyway, he was thinking about things related to Wang Ren and Su Lijing in his mind while he chatted with Yu Mengchang. He also clinked glasses with Zhong Bai and the others who came up to toast him. When he finally reacted, he realized that he had unknowingly been dragged to the center of the club's private room. There was a dartboard too. 37 meters in front of him, and he was holding a dart in his hand. What kind of tone was this? He looked around and found that Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, Yu Mengchang, and Duan Wen were all looking at him with expectant or strange expressions. Chen Guang silently swallowed his saliva and let the old man carefully recall. What happened during that period of time? Why am I standing here with this thing in my hand? What did I just agree to? Ever since she started chatting with Yu Mengchang, she felt that she had successfully led him into the gutter. She wasn't good at dealing with situations like this, so she simply went on a mental journey and activated auto-recovery mode, leaving everything to her spine. Then, he seemed to talk about his hobbies and hobbies. The old man's spine expressed that as an all-around superhuman who was proud of being pretentious, hobbies and the like, that was the old man's usual pretentious domain. He could not lose in pretentiousness. Yu Mengchang knew that Lu Fei liked racing, so he briefly mentioned that he had a professional racing team. He had an ulterior motive. In order to pick up girls, he directly created a racing team. This guy was also quite hardworking. Then, the old man, Lu Fei, and even Zhong Bai, who was on the side, showed little interest. The old man almost spilled the secret request that he had personally said. If he knew that he was the racing god, he would immediately kneel down. Fortunately, Lu Fei stepped on his foot to stop the car. Lu Fei tried to smooth things over. She said that underground racing and professional racing were two different things. There was no comparison. Then, Yu Mengchang changed a few ways. Finally, he mentioned that he was particularly interested in darts. He had just participated in a tournament and won the championship. How could he be embarrassed? How did I deal with him at that time? At this moment, Chen Guang was racking his brains. I seem to have bragged that I'm quite experienced in throwing darts. Coincidentally, this club really did have equipment for a professional darts tournament. Lu Fei and the others would play with it from time to time. Then, I seem to have been encouraged to make a bet with Yu Mengchang. So I used darts to compete with him here. What did we bet on? Money. 5 million. F***CK. The price of my absent-mindedness is terrible. The escrow mode is a bit of a scam. Holding the dart in his hand, cold sweat dripped from Chen Guang's temples. He turned his head and glared at Lu Fei. Sister, why didn't you stop me? How could he have imagined that Lu Fei would be shocked by his overflowing confidence? It was as if he had returned to the scene of him driving a small Rena and leaving everyone a few kilometers behind on Fengquan Mountain. What was a god? A god could do what ordinary people couldn't. When it came to racing, Chen Guang had already used his ironclad achievements to tell everyone that he was a well-deserved god that people could only look up to and worship. He was a god that they couldn't get close to or touch. Perhaps it was because they loved the house, or perhaps it was because Chen Guang's automatic recovery was too overbearing, but Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, and Duan Wen, who knew how miraculous Chen Guang was, never imagined that he was lying through his teeth. So the problem was, now that he had agreed to the bet of 5 million and the dart was in his hand, wouldn't it be too late to admit defeat now? What should the old man do? It wasn't much, really not much. It wasn't even a fraction of what I had in my bank account. But I used to be a thrifty young man who could split a penny into two. This was 5 million. You want me to give it away for free? Dream on. Why don't you cut a piece of meat from me? I'd feel more comfortable then. Of course, the biggest problem now was that he clearly had money in his account, but he didn't dare to touch it. Luli, the scourge and fierce beast, was watching. Chen Guang suddenly thought of a slogan that worked every time. That's right. It was time for him to shout and roar in despair in his heart once more. Lioli. Please save me again and again and again. I didn't want to talk to you at first, but you're really lucky. Lord Lioli, who would grant all requests, actually spoke. Chen Guang was moved to tears. I knew that even if I was abandoned by the whole world, Lord Lioli would not give up on me. Dear Lioli, can you control the time and specific content of the appearance of the world in a cup? Chen Guang asked expectantly. Unexpectedly, Lioli shook her head fiercely in his heart. No. Then why are you acting all high and mighty like I can save you with just a flick of my finger? Can't we be more honest? Less tricks, more sincerity, and we can still be friends. Lioli chuckled. I can only tell you this. Before 12 o'clock, there must be a world in a cup, but what is the specific content? I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure when it will happen. In short, you should pray for more luck. Think of a way to delay the time. Don't brag and drink more water. Maybe when you drink more water, the world in a cup will appear. That makes sense, but God knows how much I have to drink. When Chen Guang spoke again, Lioli had already stopped moving again. It seemed that she was really busy. Then he silently looked at the people who were looking at him expectantly. Chen Guang's originally suspended heart felt a little more assured. He looked up at the wall clock on the wall. It was 11:30. Thank God, there was only half an hour before 12 o'clock. Then the problem was, now he was standing on the line of throwing darts, holding a dart in his hand. How could he waste this half an hour and keep drinking water without batting an eyelid? Brother Guang, hurry up. Duan Wen, the business manager of Dongchong Trading Company, was like a young man here at this time. Zhong Bai also looked at him with a face full of expectation. Yu Mengchang had already thrown a round of darts. Although Chen Guang didn't understand the scoring system of this international tournament, he knew that he had done well when he saw this guy's confident expression. Chen Guang took a deep breath. To tell you the truth, my dart skills are secretly passed down from my master. When I left the mountain, my master told me that the electric venomous dragon dart must not be easily revealed to the world. If it does, it will see blood. Ha! Everyone was stunned. How could throwing a dart be so particular? Of course, Yu Mengchang didn't believe him. He looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot, waiting for him to make a fool of himself. Yu Mengchang thought to himself, this guy is obviously bragging too much and is scared by my professional level performance. He's trying to bluff his way out of this. You guys definitely won't believe me, right? That was what he thought. Wait, why are these people's gazes different from what I thought? Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, Duan Wen, and a few other good young people knew that he was the god of racing. They didn't question his nonsense at all. I never thought that Brother Guang's venomous dragon dart would have such a background. Sigh, it really makes people sigh. Zhong Bai actually said it smoothly. Yu Mengchang was blind. How could you guys believe such a shameful name like the electric venomous dragon dart? Even if he was really a martial artist, who would name his signature dish like this? Are you guys stupid? You guys actually believe this kind of nonsense? Yu Mengchang felt defeated. Had the world become strange? In his impression, Zhong Bai was quite sensible. He didn't seem to have a screw loose in his head. There was no need to mention Lu Fei. 2 years ago, she was already famous among the younger generation of the Lu family. She was known as the pearl of the next generation of the Liu family. In the younger generation of Sichuan province, she was also considered a business genius. But why are you holding your chest with your fists and looking like you're a love-struck fool? This is completely different from the noble, cold, mature, and steady person you are in front of me. Of course. I said I would tell you guys about this, but it doesn't mean that I'm going back on my words today. It's a bet. Since I've already made the bet, how can I go back on my words? It's just that I can't see blood today, and I have to use my secret technique. So I have to tell you guys everything from the beginning to the end. This matter, I have to start from 18 years ago, oh no, 15 years ago, on a summer night when I was 6 years old. A bunch of nonsense. In short, it was all kinds of nonsense. He made up a groundless strange old man, then made up an inexplicable hidden sect, then continuously bragged to everyone about his painstaking practice of his unique skills, training in the 9 seasons of winter and the 3 hottest days of summer. Then, from time to time, he would stuff the heavenly grail into his mouth again and again because his mouth was dry. After drinking 3 big cups of tea in a row, his bladder was about to explode, and he almost couldn't make up any more stories. Finally, the heavenly grail reacted and sucked him in with a slurp. It was said that some folk acrobats, after painstakingly training their knife-throwing skills to a certain level, would let their close companions be fixed on the target, and then throw the knife out. They would always be able to avoid their companion's body, and stab in the armpit or the gap between their legs. Through this kind of cruel and dangerous training, the knife-throwing skills of a knife-throwing artist could improve by leaps and bounds under the terrifying pressure. Of course, the danger was also extremely high. If one wasn't careful, they could lose their life. If it wasn't for the fact that they were tired of living or wanted to change wives, they wouldn't do this kind of thing. But today, Chen Guang said that this kind of training method of letting others lie on the target to throw darts or knives was simply too weak. What was really scary was that the person tied to the target was himself, and the person throwing the knife was also himself. Don't ask me how I know. Because 5 minutes after I entered the world in the cup, I came up with the name 9 Knives Stuck in the Head. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.